Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Tayte, and bringing back to the channel Paul for, I always say, for a very special video, but I feel like we're actually almost there with it genuinely being something very different, something we've not really done on the channel before, casting-wise stuff, but also something that is actually happening to a degree behind the scenes with the world. We'll be talking about some news, for some very interesting timing, and we are releasing this video this Saturday, the 16th of November, which is actually the 23rd anniversary of Harry Potter the Philosopher's Stone. How old are all of we now? And a friend of the channel, Jed, was born on that day. So happy birthday, Jed, and thank you for making me feel so old. That's literally how I remember the Philosopher's Stone anniversary now, is Jed's birthday. Obviously, 23 years is a pretty irrelevant.
Little baby.
Yeah, it's not much of an anniversary. It's like, you know what, it's hit November, and there's an excuse to get out on a Saturday. It just so happens to be near this. So we are doing our casting series on HBO's Harry Potter, whatever we want to call it. It's happening. It's filming in April of next year. We've somehow gone into an insane Harry Potter tangent in the last few months. All this started on a train journey to Wembley, where it was brought up in conversation with a friend. Just, they're doing a show still here. What's happening? Yeah. And the next thing you know, it's just been a juggernaut of news announcements, hype. Things have cropped up out of nowhere, conventions, all that sort of stuff. And the Harry Potter hype train is well and truly here. So we're going to be having a bit of fun. We're going to be doing 3 episodes, one each week, on who we'd want to see cast in the series. We're not just looking at the first series. We're not also taking this insanely serious, like we'll be screeching at the heavens if they don't cast a lot of these people. But for anyone that is curious at home, part 1 is going to be on the Hogwarts staff and ghosts. Part 2 is going to be on heroes, families, and ministry officials. And part 3 is going to be on dark wizards and villains. So we've spread it out a bit with some big potential roles across a couple of episodes. And I guess I'm going to also do this. Sorry, I've not done the rules of registry properly, but we're not going to be casting the school kids because they're all going to be unknowns. That would be outrageous to even look at doing that. That's not our jobs. We're essentially casting, as everyone we've mentioned. So that's a little bit out of the way. But firstly, how are you both doing? But how are you feeling about this? Has it been a challenging time for people at home, actually? So I'm going to get into this now. We're recording on Tuesday. I was sat at the cinema at 7:55 on Monday when Variety dropped the article about Mike Rylance. And yes, I put him in the thumbnail now. This video has been planned. This series has been planned. How long does it take? Would we say like maybe 2 months? We would definitely
2 or
talk about
3
this in
months.
September.
We've been talking about this for a while, a long while. Yeah. It's been milling around for quite some time, and it's been just torturing me for that entire time, trying to find the right people for the right roles. I mean, we'll talk about when we get into our list, but some of my picks I've put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I've thought really deep and hard about, and I've changed over who they are multiple times. Some of them I had first thing, it was like, yeah, that person immediately fits the role. And some of them, I'm still not sure whether they fit the role or not. We'll see how it kind of balances out when it comes to it.
Yeah, and Paul, are we going to get some good voice impressions today?
Maybe one or two. Maybe one or two. for Neil Vag at home, who loves it when I do silly voices, there may be one or two on my account. I'm not a great impressionist, but I think I can do 2.
Lovely. And people watching at home, that's a bit pro-coordinist. Comment people you want to see. I mean, the biggest fear is waking up tomorrow and then actually outright have announced loads more cast members.
The entire cast is announced. That'd be hilarious.
We've kind of been on the timeline, like, so for people who haven't seen it, they've done an open casting call for the 3 leads. Brackets, they're probably going to cast all the school kids within those 3 leads as well. And they've confirmed an April date, and we kind of said, well, if they're going to be casting and shooting in April, we're going to start to get announcements probably nearer Christmas or the other side of Christmas, which this week we're clearly getting somewhere with some of it. So we thought, okay, maybe we'll beat the traffic. So if you're watching down the line, did we get any right? Who knows? If you're watching later on, I want to know who you'd love to see in these roles. Any actors you think could play these characters? Anyone we've missed out? Again, this is more so a bit of fun with a bit of edge to it. I am going to say we've all approached these differently. As an overview for all 3 videos on mine, I have opted with the British cast role that was there in the films. If these are British characters, we cast like it's plus Ireland. Obviously, like European ones fine, European actors great. But I've basically avoided the Americans. You had your chance in Fantastic Beasts, that's what I'm going to say. And
even then, most of them were British as well.
You will always be at the top of everyone's list, but even I had to draw the line. That was my rule, wasn't it? If I'm not playing Adam Driver as Snape, because we'll be talking about Snape later, but this is not an easy. Not all of this is easy. Some of this is fun. Some of this is minor, but there is some of this where you're actually wrapping your head. And I'm thinking, fucking hell, like we're struggling having a bit of fun. Imagine those that are having to do it for a 7-8 season series and getting the actors on retainers for 7 seasons as well. Now we know, what they didn't know in 2000 when they were filming Philosopher's Stone was it was 7 books. Here's the ending of the books. The show apparently has the most authentic adaptation tagline going into it. And before we begin with the teachers, because I feel like we're doing an extended intro, I'm actually going to put you both on the spot, and I won't do this in other videos, I promise. I had a bit of good thinking recently. There's been a few documentaries, and there was a question I wanted to pose. I don't particularly care for directors. I'm not going to say do a director for the series because you're going to get so many varying ones over 7 years, but this is one I want to just get on a really quick conversation. Who do you want to compose the series? And this is me being genuine, because I'm just going to say this. The John Williams documentary spoke about him. He basically wanted to do the Harry Potter films, all of them, but he couldn't. That's something I think a lot of people look back at, myself included. I know we're going to get the Harry Potter theme carry over into this in the same way Bond has. But I'm just going to jump in and say, Nicholas Britell, you have finished on Succession now. You're finishing Andor. Get yourself in for 7 seasons of Harry Potter, because I think he's one of the best working composers. And for me, being an OCD consistency shadow, I'd just love to see a composer come on, like Jasmine Gladley with Game of Thrones, House of Dragon, bring in a composer who can do it start to finish, because the identity of the sound, it's pretty great within Harry Potter, but there is noticeable different rises with different scores and different films. So I'd love to see one composer just come on and do all 7 seasons. And sorry, I've thrown you both in the deep end straight away.
No, I have a very simple answer for this. I mean, I don't want to lean heavily into what a lot of my picks are going to be, but there has been a lot of good TV shows over the past few years, a lot of good films, and a lot of good things that have used various different British actors. One of the biggest ones of that being Game of Thrones. Bring in Ramin Djawadi, because realistically, his soundtracks and scores that he's done for Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and everything through there have been absolutely phenomenal for the fantasy kind of genre. I feel like he could really bring the magic back into Harry Potter and give it a different vibe to what John Williams gave it. That's a very easy answer from me, because I had him in my mind already for it.
This is tough. Probably Ludwig Göransson, I reckon. He's doing good work on Mandalorian. I know he's probably going to be busy doing whatever Nolan tells him to do, but I reckon he could. I would go with him or Bear McCreary, because I do like Bear McCreary's scores. But but Ludwig Göransson, I think could really do something that's quite interesting, especially when you get into like the different cultures. Later on, see what he brings when it comes to Durmstrang and Beauxbaton and stuff like that. So I would say Ludwig Göransson.
Lovely. And the final thing I'm going to say, people at home, if there is casting news, we're recording this on Tuesday the 12th of November. It is locked in. We are not lying. Should we wake up tomorrow and there's 3 names and we just so happen to have all 3, we're not playing games. It's probably not going to happen, but just to play it safe. And again, the Mark Rylance news has got to be. We'll be talking about Dumbledore later. And as I said, we do have a structure for this. So as we mentioned, episode 1, we're doing the Hogwarts staff and ghosts. As in, not going in like a full texture analysis. This is the role of the Bloody Baron for 8 seasons. No, we're just going to go through an actor. Maybe we'll have a little bit of a chat each. Maybe some of us don't know who the others have done. Naturally, with the bigger names, your Dumbledores, your McGonagalls, you're probably going to have more of a conversation. And obviously, with us doing the teachers, that's going to include the Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers. So you get some big villains, Umbridge through that. But if we're going to get started, we're going to round table it. We've got a character name, and then I guess if each of us do ours, do you want to do me, Tayte, Paul? We should have planned this. This is my bad. Yeah, just so we've got a little loop. But we're gonna start something a bit different, a bit lighter. Technically a heavyweight within Harry Potter, and 4 characters who were not known to mankind in terms of visual images until the trading cards came out at Harry Potter World or the studio tour, whenever the Chocolate Frogs first started being made. We're going to do the 4 founders first because there's photos of them, there's Lego minifigures of them with the Hogwarts set, but we've never been seen. And the logic I had kind of running the series, it's more of a glorified cameo. I said I'm not going to go in deep, but for these 4, just me as a fan, I would love to see, not like, give them cameos all the time, but, the great speech on the Chamber of Secrets, the 4 founders, this and that. I just love to see if they ever wanted to do a flashback, they ever wanted to show them a montage or something or do anything. This is kind of where we're going. So it's a bit of fun. But the first one we're going to do is Salazar Slytherin. And I've picked someone who I picked before I seen the Penguin, because he's cropped up in a flashback in that now as well. Mark Strong. I think he's the name people throw around for Voldemort. But I was like, what, technically he's a descendant of Voldemort, but he's bold and he's villainous, and he could probably play a pretty damn good Slytherin. Could he do Parseltongue in a Cockney London accent? Who knows?
That's a decent pick. He was on my cards for both Salazar Slytherin and also for Voldemort. He was one of those people who was floating around for both of those roles. I didn't end up going with him in the end. Paul, do you want to comment on that before I move on to mine?
No, I think he's a good choice, and I love Mark Strong.
So I've gone older, but same vibes. I've gone Sir Ben Kingsley, who I think will act the shit out of whatever scene he's thrown into. And because these are glorified cameos, I feel like we can really spill the budget here. We can really go, let's just get whoever we can. So why not get like the best person who, could fit that role acting wise, which I believe probably could be him.
Yeah, I love the idea of Ben Kingsley. Actually, I think that's great. For me, again, I'm thinking the same thing. Like, with the exception of maybe Ravenclaw, because I think she gets a bit more to do later on when you get flashbacks. Like you say about the Chamber of Secrets thing, you could show them a bit more, or even like you could write additional material, do it as like a pre-title sequence. A bit like the way I was thinking it, you could do it a bit like in
Last of Us,
where you get a bit more of the origin. So my Salazar Slytherin is a basic as hell choice. Tom Hiddleston. Loki, he looks like a Slytherin. Boom. There we go.
Was that Loki looks like a Slytherin or Loki looks like Slytherin? Yeah. Double-headed pun. Take it.
Play there for the audience.
I'm glad you brought that. I mean, they're all good picks. This is it. And this is the first time we're doing this. We'd be a bit of teething if we talk too long. But what you just said about The Last of Us, one of my pitches for the whole show, and I don't know if I've chatted to you about this off camera, the way Last of Us opened was so good. And if you go back to the root to Harry Potter, the 7 books, 7 mysteries, in theory, in each book, there is a mystery. What is this about? What is the story? What's unfolding across the school year? I would love the show to do something really brave, which is to open each season, have a cold open that sets up the mystery. Philosopher's Stone, okay, a bit easier. You can open up with Voldemort killing Harry's mom and dad. Yeah. Chamber of Secrets, start back in the past and have Myrtle being killed as the opening scene.
Oh, that'd be
Third one, Peter Pettigrew, Sirius Black, who killed who? Fourth one, Quidditch World Cup or Ludo Bagman's assistant, etc., etc.
Well, the fourth film kind of does it anyway with when they introduced him at the house, so they kind of do that in that one.
And this is like, I'd love to see just something, because again, they are mysteries, and what the show has to do, which we're not going to tell a showrunner how to do a show, but you have to pretend that your audience doesn't know these texts already. Yes, probably like 2/3 of people watching the show will have seen all the films, but there are going to be kids that probably get into this series, and I know there's been articles with Warner Brothers recently saying they want to make Harry Potter like the biggest IP it could possibly be. They're going to link it to the second Hogwarts game, which I think by that probably just means they're probably the same like logos and uniforms, like they're probably a more consistent tone rather than actually linking, because this is taking place 100 years after. But yeah, the 4 founders, I just think it'd be really interesting, and kind of following on from them, because I've looked at them as like a quadrant together. My Godric Gryffindor pick is something I didn't actually have. I've used my Gryffindor actor for someone else. a lot of chopping and changing. I think Tayte usage are the same. You'd pick someone, you're like, oh, fuck, I've already used them. I've gone for someone really different, and he is British, but everyone always forgets this. Look at Gryffindor, right? Stature, he's noble, he's got a big beard, he obviously carries a big sword too. You want someone a bit of class, a bit of gravitas. Someone who definitely doesn't want to be attached to a franchise. Glorified cameo, as we said. I'm going Hugo Weaving. Have you seen that guy's beard? He's in.
It's a fantasy
He's on
franchise. Got to get Hugo.
Just not in a red cap this time. He won't come back.
I'm trying to imagine him with like ginger hair. If he's a Gryffindor, right?
When I've seen him on stage, like with massive beards and stuff, you just don't recognise it's Hugo Weaving. But it's the voice, isn't it? He's got the voice.
So I've gone a different direction. I've gone with, hey, he looks immediately like him. So I've gone with Christopher Hivju, who was in Game of Thrones and various other things, playing Tormund, who just looks like he would be a Gryffindor. Big ginger guy, could hold a sword. That's my Godric Gryffindor.
Yeah. Mine, but again, basic choice. He's meant to be big, strong, brave, Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
Give the man a big sword, give him some long flowing locks, give him a big old beard, Henry Cavill. Boom, done.
Yeah,
The Witcher returns.
But ginger this time.
He'd pull it off still. He'd look great.
He would look amazing.
Hufflepuff's an interesting one. So Helga Hufflepuff. Now, again, I'm not going to be in the books guy, but one of the things I understand the films couldn't do, particularly of Half-Blood Hallows, go into the backstories of the Horcruxes, and obviously Helga Hufflepuff's cup is one of them, and that's a different character for down the line. But Helga Hufflepuff herself, I've gone for something people probably might not like. I was just thinking again that gravitas and maybe a relative pops up later on, which made me think of her. But I'm putting Rachel Weisz in. Because she's meant to be like the most Hufflepuff house. Yes, we all mock it, and I didn't get sorted in it. Good for me. And it is one of them, but she's their motherly figure, isn't she? Like everyone loves her, and she's probably got like a sinister undertone. Should it ever need to be raised? And I think Rachel Weisz can go in mine because I couldn't find her another role.
I can 100% see that, and I tried to fit Rachel Weisz in somewhere, and I couldn't do it. So I'm glad you were able to find a place for her. In the end, I went for a very left field pick on this one. I went for Ruth Jones, who may be known as Nessa from Gavin and Stacey.
All right, founders, what's a Karen?
Who's a very motherly figure. A motherly figure who people go, oh, it's Nessa, and then like that's the cameo done. So
at least you didn't cast James Gordon. Yes.
No. My one, I think, is quite left field. Like you were saying about the maternal instinct, I've gone for an actress who, whenever I see her, she elicits nothing but sympathy and empathy from me. Gemma Chan.
That's a great
shout. Humans. I love her in everything. People don't like Eternals so much, but I think she was a great anchor for that. And again, when you see her, she's just, I don't know, it's just, she's got this aura and this face that you just sort of go, I trust you. And I think she'd be great in that role.
Very interesting. She might crop up on a few of us. That's fun.
I like that.
Every time I say their names, like Rowena Ravenclaw, I just think of Maggie Smith saying it in the Chamber of Secrets.
I do know the irony that Gemma Chan is in. I think it's in Fantastic Beasts, but
is she?
Yeah, she's in. She's like a ministry figure or something.
Yeah.
My thinking is no one remembers those films and no one gives a shit.
I very almost had Callum Turner, and I was like, "Fuck, he's technically taken."
Yeah.
I just left it out for that. But my Ravenclaw, I've gone for. I almost put this as somebody else later on in the show, and I did double check that I have changed this around. Because I thought of her at one point as Rita Skeeter, because the amazing Amy, who's obviously very good at writing things. So I'm picking Rosamund Pike as Ravenclaw. She's technically the smartest, the most gifted, and she is quite inexcusably fierce. And there's a whole dynamic, as you said, Paul, like there's little things with her daughter later on who we'll talk about briefly. But if you're looking for someone who's a strict mother who I think it's like Ravenclaw's like will only allow like superior intellectuals into her house, it's a Rosamund Pike vibe, isn't it? She's not going to let anybody into the house.
I like Rosamund Pike as a pick. I've picked her for something else. I'm just going to say it in this video. So
we're going to have loads. We're going to have loads of this, aren't we?
There's a very, very small pool of British actors who will go
haven't already been in it.
Yeah, exactly. I went with the Scottish route. I went, yes, this person needs to be Scottish. So I went with Niamh McIntosh, who has taken roles in Doctor Who and various other things. But it links into who my pick for the Grey Lady is as well.
I'm glad you brought up the Grey Lady. Sorry, Paul. I know your next time I did a really good little interweaving move on it.
He's trying to find out who Niamh McIntosh is. He's
no. I've literally just as as you were talking, a name popped into my head, and I've pivoted on my Ravenclaw.
Ooh!
I've pivoted on the spot, and I'm going to go with Gugu Mbatha-Raw. People probably know her as Loki. People know her from a phenomenal. She was great in a film called Belle as well. A phenomenal British actress, and like you say, she's got a kind of authority about her. Well, she runs the TVA, but yeah, she's my pick. Also, because I realised I had a really weird discrepancy with the Grey Lady. They were different races.
Wow, that is a segue. My Grey Lady. I mean, again, you go back to the Philosopher's Stone, and we're going to do Ghosts for the first time because it's a little bit of fun. I guess the conversation really is, guess what, guys? Everyone wants Peeves to be in the series, and if you put Peeves in, you kind of got to put the other ghost in. But we're not losing the plot. We're just doing the 4 ghosts that are like the. No, we're not even putting in the. What's the? I forgot the Hufflepuff one. It's literally the Fat Fry. That's his name, isn't it?
The Fat Fry, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put him in because all he does in the films, he doesn't really do anything else.
That's dead. There'd be Matt Lucas anyway.
Fuck's sake. That would be it. Okay, so Grey Lady Ghost. We're going to do a couple of ghosts, but again, we're not doing too many. The Grey Lady who does have a very important role, i.e., get to Half-Blood Prince, get to the 7th one, and I'm going back to that Rosamund Pike vibe, right? It's that sort of not fiercely upper class, but Grey Lady is just not a disappointment, but she's actually being really horrible. She's actually one of the thickest characters in all of Harry Potter. She steals her mother's diadem, thinking the diadem is what basically gives her intelligence, not her actual brain. And then she obviously ends up getting massacred and killed by the Bloody Baron due to it for other reasons. But I'm putting, I've just realised how terrible my pick is because I've just spoken about the ending of another film she's been in. I picked Carey Mulligan, and I suddenly sound like a prick because I'm thinking Promising Woman. However, Carey Mulligan as the daughter of Rosamund Pike, I see the vision. That's why she's in mine. Not the ending.
Is she not a little bit too old for that?
So,
well, I don't know if she's old. She dies as a ghost, doesn't she? So I don't really know the age, but Carey Mulligan looks young.
Yeah,
she looks so innocent as well.
I went young actress, up and coming. So I've been watching Alex Rider through the entire series recently on Amazon Prime. So I went with Marley Sue, who is a young Scottish actress who plays the young naive role very, very well, but is also able to, play that fierce nature and pull through. She does have a thick Russian accent throughout that entire series, to be fair, but at the same time, she is a Scottish actress. I've heard her normal speaking voice. It ties into Niamh McIntosh, keeping that kind of Scottish heritage going. And I could see that they would be related to each other.
Yeah. So fixing my discrepancy, because I just realised that they were different races. My pick for the Grey Lady is Lenora Critchlow, which people probably know her best from Being Human with Russell Tovey and Poldark. She was the ghost, the vampire, the werewolf. Remember the show?
Yeah, I love Being Human. Yeah.
Most recently, people would have seen her in the Armando Iannucci show Avenue 5 with Hugh Laurie, set in space, where she is... I can't believe they cancelled that show. Bring back Avenue 5. Bring back Avenue 5.
Was it Netflix, wasn't it?
It was a Sky, and they cancelled it for 2 seasons. And they had a cliffhanger and everything. It was great. I loved it. Anyway, I love Lenora Critchlow. She's a great actress. And I think she can have that sort of vulnerability, but also, a little bit of something about her. And just get her in more stuff. She needs to be in more stuff.
Nice. Okay, moving on to the Bloody Baron. So, the Ghost of Slytherin House. I've gone for an actor. I'd like this guy to crop up a bit. Do we need him to act in one flashback scene? Perhaps. In real life, J.K. Rowling has decided to call him out and go for him in recent weeks, so that narrows this down. He wouldn't have took this. By the way, we're not talking about Voldemort, but this is like fan casting, right? We're not doing this person's actually going to say yes, because this actor 100% isn't going to say yes. But I've tried to have a bit of fun with some of mine, and the ghosts give you that little. If it's going to be a padded out 7-season show, right? Let's say 56 episodes, you're going to get more time in the castle, more time with the lessons and these sides of things. But I put David Tennant as the Bloody Baron. I know he was obviously in Goblet of Fire, in a massively underused Barty Crouch Jr. role, which isn't his fault. Pre-Doctor Who, which is still wild to think about. It was pre-Doctor Who. But it will make sense in a minute. But yeah. And also he could do the Bloody Baron's actually like quite like, not despicable, but he literally like kills the Grey Lady and is so ashamed of himself that he then like chains himself to a tree for eternity. So he won't ever take the chains off. So when he's a ghost, he's just walking in chains. I don't know how you play that up in your Philosopher's Stone swashbuckling Captain Hook vibes, but the later ones is quite clearly not the case. But yeah, I just put Tennant in because I want to have a bit of fun, and it will make sense, I promise you.
That's fair. I've I've decided to go with a very, very different pick, which I have no idea whether it would work or not. I've gone with Joel Fry. He's a funny guy, but also in everything that he's in, be it Plebs or when he was in Game of Thrones, he is a bit of a wuss. Like he really does play that kind of soppy, sad puppy vibe. So I can definitely see him being a tortured soul, but he does have that violent nature in him in other roles. So I went with that. Don't know if it's a good pick or not, but
yeah, I went with Ewan Bremner from Trainspotting, from Wonder Woman, because I think he's got a bit of a look of madness about him. So he could, you know, when you see him in the early seasons, you'll be like, that guy looks a bit crazy. And then when you find out the backstory, really, the casting is all building up for the reveal of him killing the Grey Lady. That's really what I'm casting for, is that flashback sequence.
He wasn't in Prometheus, was he?
No.
Or was he in an AVP? He might have been in something. I might be
AVP. He was in AVP.
AVP.
Yeah,
that's a great pick.
Massively that's a good pick. That's a really good pick, actually.
Okay, let's move forward and finish my David. Who does David Tennant do double acts with? Obviously, we're doing Nearly Headless Nick next, aren't we? Who has a little bit more to do than him. So Nearly Headless Nick, I've got Michael Sheen. I actually was desperate to get him in. I had him in about 3 or 4 different roles at the same time, and I was like, I want the Tennant double act. I've seen their Skype calls when they take the piss out of each other. I'm like, if that's in ghost form, I'll allow the Bloody Baron to be not as dark as he was. But I just want to see Michael Sheen would make a great Nearly. You could picture him doing all the humor stuff. He'd be great.
George, I've picked Michael Sheen.
Fine. What with it? This role?
Yeah. Michael Sheen, Nearly Headless Nick. I see it so much. He was one of the first people I wrote down. It was like, yeah, he is. You need him in that role.
I haven't.
No,
I haven't. I'm thinking, because the thing with him, because what's his real name is like Sir Nicholas Porpington de Mimsy.
It's very French.
So yeah, so it's like really pompous. Oh, they won't let me be part of the Headless Hunt because it becomes. I thought Rupert Everett, Prince Charming from Shrek 2. He's very, especially as he's gotten older, he's gotten a bit, no offense to the man, a bit fatter, a bit saggier, but he's still got that voice that goes like this. And I just think that would be really funny for Nearly Headless Nick. When he's pulling his head to the side and things like that, you just think Rupert Everett could have a lot of fun with that role, and I think he'd be a good addition.
Exactly, and this is kind of under the show. Like, yes, we're casting, yes, we got a lot of fun, and yes, there's going to be some really good ideas, but it's just a bit of fun. And Peeves is the big one. Now, this is something that actually not peeves me off because that's a shit pun, but for no one that knows this, that Rick Mayall was cast as Peeves in Philosopher's Stone, one of the greatest British comics of all time. And the reason he was removed, I don't know. I've seen like big Harry Potter channels talking about, it's like, for whatever reason, they cut his scenes. I'm like, scenes, plural. He was too funny that the kids couldn't act around him. He was naturally too funny. And if you ever see behind the scenes of Philosopher, they've made sure they've never released a frame of footage. There's an image of him, but they've made sure that footage has never been released, which is a crying shame. but because he's so funny naturally, you can understand why it was really hard for 10-year-olds to be around him, especially when you see the footage of how like the kids were at the time because they were fucking children like what we were. So I'm trying to follow that, not necessarily a comedy legend as such. That's really disrespectful to talk about, but I've got someone who I know more as podcast or visual, because Peeves, he's a poltergeist. He's got to visually look a bit funny in the face. I'm going for someone I don't think anyone in America's heard of, and a lot of British folks do. Football fans also heard of him. I've gone for Rob Beckett. He has a really good podcast on BBC. He's always at England games in the crowd.
Massive teeth.
He's got the massive teeth. He's got the glasses. I just think if you're casting someone for, I don't know if he can act. That's, I guess, my question. I've never seen. I don't know if he's done something, but I just think if you're just going to put someone funny in a funny role, just give it to him and make the kids laugh. I think he's a very good comedian, and his podcast is great. I really recommend it on BBC. Yeah, Rob Beck. It's one of the first things that came out. I was like, yeah, Rob Beck would make a great piece. I don't know why, but he would. He just looks funny.
I like that. I've gone with something very similar. I feel like for this role, you have to go with like a great British comedian. Now, this person has actually done films before, but hasn't done films in a while, hasn't done stand-up in a while, and that's Lee Evans, who has the look. Has the look big time. He was in Something About Mary. He's done acting before on a big stage. Yeah. But what a great comedian who has the face as well. Could do it.
And he can do the expressions, can't he, as well? Like, he can be funny.
Okay, my one. This choice was almost my Gilderoy Lockhart as well. Okay? Just to let you know, he was nearly my Lockhart, but someone else picked him to the post. So my pick for Peeves is Matt Berry. Matt Berry! I'm a poltergeist in this school, and I'm going to haunt you. Oogity boogity. I love the idea of Matt Berry just going around,
floating,
people get pissed off with him, and him just being like, Dumbledore, what's going on now? Uh-oh. Oh, Potter, you rotter. What are you doing? You've gone and killed another student. Oh, no, in Hogwarts.
It'd be like the PS1 game version of him. Like, it is.
You really are the most devious bastard in Hogwarts school.
I can see it.
We need to find it's when I saw the wild robot and he popped up as a beaver, and I'm like, Matt Berry, it's fine.
I'm cool. Yeah,
I love he's now cracked America with What We Do in the Shadows. Like, that's a proper British. Is
so
in Heart FM. Like,
I love him. I love him so much. He's one of my favorite comedians, and I would love him to be Peeves and just pop up and just every just a couple of scenes here and there each season, but just go, oh no, somebody's put your name in the car.
It'd be great. It'd be like a welcome cameo. Like every time it pops up.
Post-credit scenes as well. Put some post-credit scenes of him just commenting on the events of the series, being like, well, who'd have thought that the defense against the dark arts teacher would turn out to be a bastard?
I need to know. He just needs to narrate all. Just get an audiobook, scrap off Stephen Fry, and just get Matt Berry to narrate all the 7 books. Oh god, I don't. Okay, now we go from Peeves to Professor Binns. For those that are unfamiliar with Professor Binns, he is the teacher of history, like literally the history teacher. The story is he died in his office teaching at school, and his ghost left his body and just went into the lesson to teach. Like, he didn't know he died. And he is the most boring, drivel-led teacher there is. Now, I can't remember if he's in the Hogwarts Legacy game, but the reason we put him in this, he has one integral scene, one real integral scene. And this is where I've gone with my pick for this, which is going to get topical. He narrates the story about the Chamber of Secrets. So obviously Maggie Smith McGonagall does it in the second film, and understandably so. But within canon, it was always said that this is basically the only lesson that anyone ever paid attention in 5 years, because they wanted to find out what happened at the Chamber of Secrets. So you've got to think, you're going to cast an actor who's going to give the exhibition story to the Chamber of Secrets. Now, in my head, let's interweave those characters we spoke about earlier. But I have gone for Mark Rylance.
So have I.
And that's why Variety have pissed me off, because I had it, and I am not baiting with the thumbnail. I think, Paul, did we speak with us at the Joker screening? I was chatting to her, I was like, I've got a really good obscure pick. I'm like, it's that who can you bring in for one scene to get everyone's attention?
Do you know what it was? It was me thinking of his scene in Ready Player One where he's kind of talking a bit quiet,
mumbling,
bit of a regional accent, and if you can imagine, and then
like Dunkirk.
Yeah, outside of the region, then all of a sudden the great big monster will come out, and I can just see the scene happening, and then you can interweave, like you say, the flashbacks over his narration. I think it would look great.
Interesting, very interesting. I guess because he has possibly was something else. No, insane. I've gone with an actor who is a comedian but plays almost the boring role as part of his career, Billy Connolly. Because people love Billy Connolly, but you could imagine him just kind of falling asleep midway through, telling someone about something and then waking up again, and all of that. But also he has the gravitas to tell a story if he needs to.
I like the idea of allowing him to swear in one episode. There's a fucking chamber, and all of a sudden the great big thing come out. Everybody running around.
You could see it. I always remember in Unfortunate Events. We've seen that when we were young. Again, similar to Harry Potter, wasn't it? Unfortunate Events became a TV show. But he was great in that when we got him.
Yeah, he was. Billy Connolly.
We'll talk. We'll save the proper Mike Rylance chat for later at the end because we're doing Dumbledore last as an on-spoil heads up. But that'll be a good time to talk about that because variety. Thank you. We had this written down ages ago. Okay, ghosts are done. This is going surprisingly quicker than I thought, which is great. But we're going to get into some heavy names soon. Not immediately, but we do have one. We're going to talk Filch, the Squib, the caretaker, someone who. Again, if you're padding it out across 7 seasons, particularly in Chamber of Secrets, he's going to get a lot more to do. And I kind of struggled with this for a while until a name... Again, you have the same name on 3 or 4 different spreadsheets, and you keep zigzagging roles like, I need to get this person in this. Where am I going to put him? How am I going to get him in this? And you look at David Bradley, who is, I say, a local legend. He's like from the town where I live, so he's like... Him and Sophie Turner's like Leamington's celebrities. They're our own. Ironically, Walder Frey, who massacred the Stark family. But he has such a visual, distinct appearance. I'm like, I want somebody that could do... Because it is a facial expression almost. His Filch, it's very physical. It's the costume, it's the hair, it's the cat, it's the voice, it's...
The running he does with Umbridge. When Umbridge is...
he's delightful. And I love that the later films tailed in, when the students out of bed... Students, the comedy timing. So I've gone for someone that I think is going to crop up on all 3 of us at some point in the series. But I've gone for someone that I didn't ever have for this role. I had something much bigger in mind. And then it came to me, I was like, I need a great British character actor that can sort of transform into any role that isn't going to be something you think of. So I'm putting Andy Serkis in mine.
Okay.
Because not because he played the butler in Batman, but you look at Andy Serkis when his scrawled up like scrunch faces, slap the long hair on him. Would Andy Serkis do a 7-season run? I see it. Are we going to use Imaginary for motion capture? Probably. He would do it. Small role each season, get Serkis in, get him on the board. He's on mine. Love Andy Serkis. What a hero. How was he never in Harry Potter anyway?
I was going to say he's going to be on my list at some point, but I've saved him for something where we can make use of his talents a bit more.
That's fair.
I've gone with just a miserable bastard of an actor. I was thinking through who are the most miserable characters in various different series. Miserable but charismatic. I've gone with Jerome Flynn. At this point, I was going through a bunch of Game of Thrones actors, and I was like, it's
hard not to look at Game of Thrones.
Bron's so miserable a lot of the time. Like, he's just complaining about things, and he's got a bit older now. You could easily see him with a hunch, just kind of like walking through and just like muttering to himself, and absolutely falling in love with my Dolores, who I picked. So yeah.
Okay, I've gone for one. In my opinion, beloved staple of British telly and film and Hollywood film as well. And if you know his Hollywood work, you'll see the vision. Mackenzie Crook.
Yes.
Think about him in Pirates of the Caribbean, where he's got the weird eye and the long hair. I'm a fan. I like Mackenzie Crook's work anyway. I think he's great in The Office. Love him in The Office. And again, playing that kind of underling role to a kind of narcissist, which is going to work great when the Umbridge comes in. Mackenzie Crook, I think he'd smash the role, and it'd be great to see him in a big production again. I love him very much.
Excellent. 3
I
goes. I like
that pick.
going through the teachers. I'm going to be very honest. We're entering probably some of the toughest picks of mine. These are the ones where we probably didn't need them on the list, but we did because, again, we got Madame Hooch next. And again, if you've obviously seen the films and you've not read the books, which is fine, you'd have seen her pop up in. Was she even in Chamber of Secrets, or did she have like a fleeting cameo on the Quidditch pitch?
Chamber of Secrets, I think.
And you got to think Zoe Wanamaker, who was at the time my family one of the best British sitcoms I remember growing up. Loved it. And something I want to say about Quidditch. God, people, I can't believe in real life people actually play this. Obviously not the way they're doing this, but yeah, different conversation. But it's a humongous thing in the series of the books, all the way through, right through to 6th. The Quidditch stuff is always massive each year. And I completely understand. What I hate with fandoms is people can't see not the bigger picture, but you're turning a 700-page book into a 2-hour adaptation. Things such as sport are not going to be important within that. When it's an internal storyline within, here's a Quidditch story we're telling across 5 years, that doesn't need to be in the films. But you're doing a show, yeah, it probably should and could, and other characters get really good development through it. So I think Madame Hooch, could pop up quite a bit, and I'm not really sure about my pick. I've basically looked at the hair of Zoe Wanamaker and thought, who could I get in? And I'm going back to Judge Dredd or Dredd from 2012. So I'm putting Lena Headey in. Now, yes, this is an A-lister, and maybe with some of the bigger teachers, I'm going to do this. I don't care that's not realistic or not, but a fleeting cameo, Lena Headey. She's got a bit of a presence. But I just want her from Judge Dredd on a broomstick to ref a game of Quidditch. That's as simple as my request got.
Yep. I went down a similar route. I just want to match the look, match the hair, and I cut away from the British actors on this one. I went with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Ooh. I see the vision.
She's going to get nominated for an Emmy because she was in for 20 seconds.
Yeah,
100%. Thank you for not being the best supporting actress in your film, but winning the Oscar.
Well, I've not gone so much for the look, but for the authority. Because if I remember correctly, Madame Hooch is she's a very drill sergeant of this is how you do it. So I've gone for someone who basically comes in swinging her big lady dick, and I picked Hannah Waddingham. Hannah Waddingham was nearly my McGonagall as well. I should say this. She was nearly my McGonagall for that exact reason. She's got a presence about her. And because she's got the voice to sing opera, she can project that voice. And I just think that she would nail that role. And again, it's only a couple of episodes here and there. So I get those best guest actress in a drama series Emmys in there.
I mean, can I ask you both a hypothetical question off point?
Go on.
I've seen so many articles about the show, right? Oh, it's not a film. It's not going to have the budget, it's still fucking HBO. It's still Harry Potter. Warner Brothers are not going to skimp on a budget. This is what's really annoying. And I'm not getting into, I want big names, but they're not doing this on the cheap. This is going to probably be at levels of Star Wars. Yeah, this is going to be 20 million episode plus, maybe. Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't see this. And if they're going to be using a lot of sets from the films, which is brackets unknown but rumored, they're going to save a bit of money on building a great hall when they've got a lovely studio tour already built. And I'm just a bit this logic of don't expect A-listers. I'm like, they can afford A-listers. These kids, the casting, the logic of casting kids is that your budget then goes on your names, and it's the adult roles for the kids to learn from and work with. You look at Daniel Radcliffe, how he speaks about Alan Rickman, how he speaks about Gary Oldman. It's going to be very different of this because the actors are going to be, in my version, younger. But I just think as a question overall of this, I find it weird people talk about...
No, I agree with you. You think Game of Thrones, you think House of the Dragon, those are great big dragon spectacle, CGI, massive costumes, ice, frost monsters, and they've got proper... Sean Bean ain't cheap. Sean Bean is not a cheap... Dinklage's salary went up as he got bigger. He was each season he'd be more money, please. And each season had a raft of proper thespian actors. And then when you get to House of the Dragon, it's I don't think Rhys Ifans and Paddy Considine and Matt Smith are coming in on the cheapo. I think they're going to be charging you a fair wedge. And Harry Potter is, again, if they're putting the money... The thing with Harry Potter is not every episode's going to cost a fortune, because a lot of them is kids running around corridors going, what's this at night? So you can save that budget, especially in the first season. You can save that budget for your Quidditch episode, which is going to be your great big. Your Daenerys on the dragon burning the city down episode, where you're like, all the money's going on this Quidditch match, or all the money's going on the three-headed dog, or whatever. So I think they will. And also if you got the guy from Succession, they had some A-listers in guest roles. James Cromwell, again, is not cheap. James Cromwell, Alexander Skarsgård is not cheap.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, just I know it's sort of off point to this, but just because we're getting into that, as we head into the bigger teachers, right, this is where the logic's going to start going. And I say we're heading into bigger teachers. I've got Professor Sprout, and this is probably the worst casting on my list, so brace yourselves. You can't really do Miriam Margolyes again. The icing on the cake is she absolutely despises her time on it. She filmed like 2 scenes in 2 films, which is great. Literally, a friend of mine met her at a convention a few months ago. He's like, she told me she's got no memory of filming. I'm like, that's because she actually hates it. She's here for the money, lad. Nothing wrong with that, but she doesn't care. I've put, not taking the piss because she's called Sprout, but I put Gwendolyn Christie in mine. I can't remember her description of the book's like smaller, short, stumpy. But I just thought, you know what? If she's ahead of Hufflepuff, if we're going to have her around a bit more, I kind of want someone with a bit of a presence, maybe too big a presence than Christie. But there we go. More Game of Thrones people. I struggled for this role. I'm just leaving that there for people.
This role I was actually is one of my favorite castings for it. Maybe because she's a hot kind of topic at the moment. But I mean, I first saw her in The Offenders, and then she had a fantastic role in Baby Reindeer. But Jessica Gunning would be a fantastic Sprout. Brilliant actress, and I think she suits it.
Both your choices may crop up in later castings for because my pick. This is purely to please just myself, because I'd love to upset all the right wingers in the world. I want Kathy Burke, because I love Kathy Burke. She's one of our greatest actresses. Neil by Mouth is a great movie. I still like Gimme, Gimme, Gimme. And also the interviews, she would be swearing like a sailor, and it would be fucking hilarious. And I love Kathy Burke.
She's going to be in another video of mine. I'm very excited to talk about Kathy Burke. I've just realised I've gone wrong on the schedule. I skipped 2 ahead, so I was
going to say
the spreadsheet just has right now a lot of professors and madams. So we're going to go to Madame Pomfrey, who is a character that, again, she's a nurse. Maybe she needs to be on this, but she appeared in all the films. I'm doing something really different. If she gets a bit, I mean, she's always better there to save Harry at some point, let's be honest. But I just wanted someone who I maybe could have put in another role, and I'd like to see her in Harry Potter because I've seen her in Doctor Who, and everyone loves Billie Piper. So, Billie Piper, would you like to be a nurse and save all their day? Yes, you can, my dear.
I've got Billie Piper down as something very. I'm not gonna lie. I've got Billie Piper down as something very different. We're talking about that at some point in the future. This was probably one of my least low effort picks, or the lowest effort pick. I went, she's a nurse. Think of people who've played nurses in the past. Let's go with Miranda Hart. She was in Call the Midwife, so Miranda Hart. Yeah,
it's like the most glorified returning character, like not in a disrespectful way. This sounds horrible. Do you remember the actress of Madame Pomfrey?
Gemma Jones. It was Gemma Jones.
Okay, Paul's bailed us out.
I only know that because she's great as Elton John's grandma in Rocket Man. She plays Elton John's grandma.
Oh,
yeah,
very good film. Second time we brought a Rocket Man today.
Gemma Jones is one of those ones where I think it's Gemma Jones. It's Gemma something. Anyway. She is one of those actresses. She's in everything, and you're like, oh, it's in from the thing. She's one of those actresses. My pick, I've gone for somebody who, Madame Pomfrey shows up. She says things like, "What were you expecting? Pumpkin juice," and she's, busying around doing stuff. So I've picked Lucy Davis. People, Shaun of the Dead. Office one mainly. I thought because of Wonder, because again, I don't want to be rude, but no, she's a slightly larger lady. She's also lovely in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which was great on Netflix. Bit witchy, but she's got a kind of maternal thing. But you could have some fun with that role. She could do some funny levity in the darker moments. That's what my rationale for that was.
Nice. She just needs to be in a bit more.
Pick.
You're right. She popped up in Wonder Woman, and then it was lovely in that.
All the best laughs in Wonder Woman as well. She was great.
Very good first film. Brought that up recently, David Thewlis. Carry on. But okay, let's move to another character. Let's go back to the professors. We're almost in the right order. Professor Flitwick. Sorry, guys, I'm bringing him back. He has the royalties. It's Warwick Davis. Listen, I'm not bringing many people back. It's the only person I'm putting in the original, and I'm not putting him in the 3 roles he was in. So, Warwick Davis, you'd be back as Flitwick. I'm going to put a little asterisk. Don't radically change the design of him 3 films in, because it took me like 10 years to work out it was the same character. And I think the story is that
it wasn't meant to be.
In the Goblet of Fire. Sorry, in the Prisoner of Azkaban, he was just literally meant to be a conductor. And then when it got to Goblet of Fire, Mike Nall was like, I liked him in the last one. Put him in this as that.
I think that looks better.
I know Flitwick. I know Goblin's a tricky term of fantasy, and people go a bit AWOL and crazy with Harry Potter, which it's more of a fantasy genre issue than Harry Potter issue. If I'm getting into that, but apparently he's got like Goblin DNA or something. Whether they just say that, I don't know. But I loved the crazy wizards sat on all his books teaching them how, because he's meant to be the most intelligent wizard of them all, like even as intelligent as Dumbledore, they claim, head of Ravenclaw. So I do like the design in the later films as well, but I just get the design right and stick with it.
He just had a good summer. He took a nice holiday and decided to get a haircut, and he's
probably had a heartbreak. He's probably on the rebound.
We'll get you some hair dye. We'll get you out there some new clothes. You look great, Phileas. Don't worry, mate. You can do better than her, mate.
Now, I'm going down this route here because I want to talk about this as well. We had Peter Dinklage making comments about acting roles for people with dwarfism or other genetical disorders that affect people's height. He said he didn't like the idea of it, of people being typecast into it. We then had the whole debacle based around the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, with it being CGI'd in, and it looks so horrible. Bad. It looks awful. I feel like, of course, we should cast people into roles for certain things, but I do feel like if a role is written for the purpose of having someone in that role, for example, a character which is meant to have dwarfism or some kind of, that goblins or goblin DNA that shorten the height, and I feel like the role should go to someone who has a similar kind of, stature, or at least a similar kind of, condition that goes with it. I've gone with an actor who is seasoned. I've gone with an actor who I think would actually really play it well and would play it well through every single film. I've gone with Deep Roy.
Oh, that's a good choice.
Legend.
Mm-hmm.
If only he could multiply himself.
Yeah.
I love him as the Oompa Loompas. I'm sorry. I prefer him to the OG.
He's fantastic. And I feel like I haven't seen him in many roles recently. He is still acting. But
he does a lot of conventions. Was he Lord of the Rings as well, wasn't he?
Flitwick needs to go to a role who is a seasoned actor and needs to go to a role of someone who has dwarfism. So I feel like Deep Roy is the perfect choice for that.
See, I had real trouble casting this role, and I've actually not cast anyone. But because I do think you could find a new actor, I know that Warwick Davis has his agency that specifically finds work for actors with dwarfism. Was the back Life's Too Short was a he's got his own. So all the Gringotts goblins
bankers
they all go to Warwick Davis's acting agency. He runs an acting agency specifically for actors with dwarfism. A little bit of him paying it back because he's like Willow. He's like one of the
he takes the role he wants.
He takes the role he wants. And to go back to what Dinklage was saying, I do agree with what he was saying, because the problem is you're stuck between two things, and I think Dinklage has made a career very well of not being like, I'm the dwarf guy, but being, I'm an actor who happens to have a genetic condition, but that's not all I am. And I think the thing with and I know that a lot of people have said some nasty things off the back of Snow White, but the problem is that when you have that condition, you only get cast as Santa's elves or the Seven Dwarfs or those. And in a way, what do? Do you not work? You want to be an actor? You got to take the roles that you get. However, Dinklage's point is, and then in the street, people scream elf at you, or they scream, look, it's where are these other 6 dwarfs? So it's a bit of a poison chalice in a way. So I get both sides of the equation, but I do think go to Warwick Davis and his acting agency. There are plenty of actors with dwarfism who want to be in the big movies, that want to do these roles, like Deep Roy, like Peter Dinklage, but they don't just want to be known as the little guy. They don't just want to do those roles. And Flitwick, I think, is a great chance for that because his height, nobody doesn't matter. Like you say, he's the smartest guy after Dumbledore. That would be a great opportunity, and you could find a new actor that gets their Game of Thrones moment, to do their thing. So I think it could be an opportunity to really open the door for someone.
It'll be his son. I'm joking, but his son will be on the series.
If anyone's
he just cast his son in a lot of things now. I've got nothing wrong with
it.
But I did the Warwick Davis is interesting because, but also he's always been at the Dinklage. The Dinklage was right of what he said and what he spoke of his history, and Dinklage. A lot of it you can go to source material. Dinklage probably nailed one of the best acting roles on TV in the last decade or so.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Oh, it was a dwarf role. It was no. This is one of the best roles. Okay, the last season's let his character down, but that's not his fault. That's the writing. But when that writing's at its peak, and I believe George R. R. Martin said on record that that's his favorite character within Game of Thrones. Like he's done all he can to keep him alive so far. Brackets, will he ever do the last 2 books? Who knows? But no, Flitwick is a tricky one, and I think as well with Flitwick, it's if you're going to get an 8-season show, he's probably going to be in it way more. Like he's in the first one, a good chunk. He's in the lessons. You'd probably spend more time within Charms. I don't just want a series just going around lessons and stuff, but you'd imagine in certainly the earlier ones, you'll get a bit more time within those classroom dramas, which is some of my favourite bits of those films is the Defense Against the Dark Arts lessons. And that was almost the perfect segue into Defense Against the Dark Arts. But next up, we're talking divination. We have Trewlawney, which was probably one of the most interesting roles. Appears in 3 onwards. Basically, if anyone doesn't know the book side of her, she's like a wild, raging alcoholic who is never present anywhere, and she is literally a fraud. She actually just conjures up outrageous, ridiculous prophecies that are never going to be true. But she made 2 correct prophecies in her life. One, of course, in the 3rd film. But the second one, for those that don't know this, the prophecy that they obviously hype up in the 5th one is done by, that was Trewlawney in her job interview. She did the prophecy, and because of what it was about, Dumbledore basically employed it to keep it safe and hidden. Kind of what he probably should have done with Slughorn if he'd have tried it. So she's a very important character they may be able to spend a bit more time with, kind of what we're going off. It's going to be a 7-season thing. But I've gone for someone that needs a bit of, not quirkiness, but you've got to think that deep down she can actually, she's probably got some internal struggles as we know, but she's got almost a harmless face and recognition. So I've gone for someone who's been dearly missed on the big screen recently. I've put Sally Hawkins in this mine. I think you could put her in all the outrageous clothes, the big glasses, give her the divination ball. I was like, if they wanted to make it a bit more dramatic in the sense of none of that, which we loved in the films, but they wanted to take it in a completely different direction. Sally Hawkins could probably do the drama with a little bit of injected comedy, but do the darker side of it better. Would she do it? Again, she didn't even want to do 3 Paddington films, so probably not 7 Harry Potters. But again, very small role, British actress. Make it make sense.
So that's a great pick. I actually really like that. I avoided going with a new adaptation of it. I've pretty much gone with who could actually do a really good job of matching performances here. And we've already mentioned her today. It's Rosamund Pike. If you've seen her in, what was the film from last year? Saltburn. Oh boy. If you see her in Saltburn, you see her in this role. She plays that kind of skittish, alcoholic, loopy, kind of would make false predictions kind of person. So I put her down for that.
That's a good shout. I've gone a bit left field with this. Obviously, the books aren't race specific, and I don't want to be one of those. I mean, you could kind of tell already from the choices I picked. I wanted to be a bit more diverse in my casting, not make a point of it, but just good actors that happen to be a colour. But for this one, I thought all right, it's to do with divination, it's to do with tea leaf reading. You could sort of bring in some kind of more voodoo to it. Lashana Lynch. You know, kind of make her a bit like Naomi Harris in the Pirates movies. She could, and I reckon if you gave her, you know, if anyone saw her as Bob Marley's wife, I can't remember, Rita Marley, in the Bob Marley movie, where she's got the great big thick dreads. If you had that, lots of jewelry, bring a bit more of like different cultures of magic into the thing. And again, she's an actress, you know, she can do big budget stuff like Captain Marvel and Bond, but she is a great performer as well. And I think, you know, when she does the things where she spaces out and she does, you know, he will be reunited. That could be, you know, you could make that properly scary, and she's got some gravitas. And I think it'd be great to see Lashana Lynch do it.
That'd be amazing. She's in Day of the Jackal at the moment. I'm hearing good things about that. I'm also seeing Sky Sports shoving it in everyone's throat every minute of every day. It's airing Thursday, don't know, but I'm hearing genuinely good stuff about it. She's playing a double O again. Wow, a spy. But we all know where we've seen her. Very good actress. And she might crop up in another video as well. So now we're going to get a bit more, not fun. We're heading into some of the heavyweights. We've got 13 more. However, people at home, 3 of these are like glorified cameos, which we'll fly through. But we've got the 6 Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers. We're going to do them in order. I'm excited because I think this is where it gets not like meaty, but yeah. Professor Quirrell. Potter. Sorry, I just like how he does it at the end of the film. I want a younger actor, someone who's had this innocent look, right? Of this sort of, he's a dark wizard technically. You don't think of it because you see him as this weak, all that stuff he does. So I've gone for someone a bit younger. Someone I've seen that's been bold a lot recently. Because I know he's going to wear a turban. You've got to think on the back of his head, he's going to have Lord Voldemort. One of my favourite things I hope the show does, Fred and George get detention for lobbing a snowball at the back of Quirrell's head. So at some point,
I remember that.
There's a snowball. I've gone for someone who's about to get even bigger than they already were this week. I'm putting Joseph Quinn in mine because maybe because he's always got like a buzz cut now, and we're seeing him with a buzz cut everywhere. I was like, can you slap a turban on him? Yes, you can. Can he act? Yes, he fucking can. And I'm hearing good things about Gladiator too. Obviously, he's going to be in Fantastic Four. He's probably going to be not necessarily too big for Harry Potter, but this is where I'm trying to. I'm going to talk this with my. This is it. This is my defense against the dark arts logic and some of the big roles. Some of the characters, specifically the second season, I've gone for maybe you're going to get an A-lister who isn't guest starring, they're guest seasoning. They know it's a one season and done. They need to come back. Can this person sign on for 3 months of work? Maybe. That's it. They know they're done. And this is, I guess, the advantage of all the books done, right? Every actor signing on knows exactly how long am I on retainer for? How long is my role? What am I going to need to do? So I've gone for Joseph Quinn as Quirrell. It's a recognizable face. He's going to get mainstream. And he seems young enough that he'd probably actually want to not do Harry Potter, but he's in that generation like ours that like just missed out on any film stuff. So Quirrell, yeah, a bit younger, a bit, he's got to be able to basically do the Two-Face. But I'm going to add this as an asterisk. My Voldemort, which we'll do in episode 3, is going to be in the back of his head. It's not going to be Joseph Quinn doing Two-Face.
Yeah, that would be what I would want to happen as well.
I also would want that as well. I've gone for something slightly different. I've gone with everyone in the first book being really naive and young and making the character of Quirrell to be cartoonishly evil from the very, very start, and just is like the obvious kind of pantomime. He's the evil one kind of thing from the very start. Like, how are you not understanding that he is the evil one? So I've gone with Bern Gorman, just because, you look at him and you go, dear
that's
Lord, that's Voldemort. And all the kids will be like, oh yeah, Professor Quirrell, we love him. You're like, no, that's Voldemort. Guys, don't be so naive. Like, he literally looks like Voldemort kind of thing. But, he's a great actor. He is American. I didn't actually realize this. I thought when he was...
Is he? I was Welsh.
I thought he was
an American actor. Yeah, no, he's American. So, born in Hollywood, apparently. But I think he grew up in Wales, possibly, because he started off with Torchwood and other kind of British shows. But I feel like Bern Gorman would hammer the hell up out of that role, really lean into the stutter and really lean into the evilness of it.
Yeah, my one, the one I actually struggled really hard with this one, because I think Quirrell could be an interesting season-long role. I went for someone based solely on one role they've done in the past. I went with Paul Bettany, based solely on the Da Vinci Code. Based solely on the Da Vinci Code.
Oh, yeah.
But you can imagine, because everyone knows him now as Vision, and he's like, what is grief if not love persevering? You're like, oh, he's so lovely, and he's got that very tall, he's got that step, but he can turn it. And when he turns it, and he, the bit, what I'm thinking of, what I'm casting for, is that final confrontation at the mirror in the dungeon when he's proper screaming. And it'd be scary for the poor little 10-year-old that's got to act opposite Bettany, but for an audience, it's going to be muy bueno. So yeah, Paul Bettany's my choice.
I'm just going to add, for his death, no one doesn't know it. He doesn't turn into stone. He gets like second-degree burns implanted on his face. Like Harry straight up murders him and literally leaves one of the most like disgusting dead bodies I find. Understandable why he was turned to stone in the film. But if HBO wants to do that route, they probably won't. That would be very interesting.
Could you imagine the entire series being like, oh, it's a PG rating. Final episode, it's a 15. They just up the rating.
It could. Why not?
Fling run across the room when they're doing wizard chess. Let's really disturb these little kids.
Can we get all? I mean, I know the Snape one was rubbish, but can we get all 7 of the?
Yeah, no, I want all of them.
And they can't. There's no excuse on TV. Like that's it. Not that
the finale, I would assume, would be a 2-parter, and you can get all the trials, and then you build it up. It'd be great.
Literally, you can picture cliffhanger penultimate episodes is Quirrell at the mirror. Done. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, we go on to Chamber of Secrets. I've got the theme in my head. Gilderoy Lockhart. How do you? I'm not doing Kenneth Branagh again, by the way. As much as I'd love to. To me, this has got to be like, if you're an actor, this is probably one of the most entertaining roles you can take in the series. It's a guest season again. Brackets, you are going to cameo in the 5th series. Thank you very much. We're going to do it properly this time. So you've got to play the best fraud. He's going to be in every episode. He's at Diagon Alley. He's through all the way to the end, and he's at St. Mungo. So I want someone who can do the fraud. I don't just need a good actor. I need somebody that every audience member can outrageously believe has slayed all these dragons, has done all these outrageous things. And at the same time, being able to do the action side, although we never see it, he's got to be able to balance the action with the outrageous over-the-top comedy. But I want a bit more than that. I want somebody who is one of the most recognizable faces within action. And we're talking British cinema here. So I have narrowed it down to a franchise where there are only 6 of them that have done it. 2 of them are dead. Another one is too old. 2 of them are too old, which leaves 2 alive ones. Now, if you know what I'm talking about, you've got the hero of heroes, Pierce Brosnan, or you've got Daniel Craig. And I'm putting Craig in as Gilderoy Lockhart on the basis it is literally going to be a blend of Benoit Blanc with James Bond into a role. I've not seen Queer. Obviously, it's not out in the UK yet.
What accent is he doing as Gilderoy Lockhart? Is he allowed to do an accent?
Daniel Craig gets to pick. Maybe he'll want to do his Scouse one because he's from there.
That would be so funny.
And obviously I mentioned I've got Rachel Weisz in the series as well, but one guest season, get DC in, I think could have the time of his life.
I reckon so.
I don't know if it's the best, and I don't know if it would work, but I'm certainly sat there like, if Craig wants to grow his hair out again, if he wants to get an outrageous,
that's the thing, because like all
his
the
girls have got to fall for him.
All the
get him coming out the sea of Flourish and Bloods. Yeah, my mom loves Daniel Craig still. They all do, and I think he nails everything about it, and I think he'll enjoy it. Again, but the key is you get the cameo in Order of the Phoenix at the hospital. That is my caveat. And I know that Kenneth Branagh really wanted to do it, didn't he? But it was a budget thing. They couldn't build the St. Mungo set, which I think is bollocks. But I understand. But yeah, sorry that I've been so excited. It's not going to be the best Gilderoy, but in my head, it's like the logic of a Bond playing the fraud action star is perfect, and Brosnan's too good for it.
Two words for my pick. Hello there. That's all I need to say. That's all I need to say. That's all I need to say. Like, you imagine if he actually said it as well in the series, like as his entrance. Like
he could do that.
Gilderoy Lockhart, hello there.
Just it's Ewan McGregor. It's Ewan McGregor.
He could do the laugh. He could do the like the ridiculous like.
We've seen him play more villainous roles. We've seen him play the action hero. He is Space Jesus at this point. So you know, he is one of the most recognizable actors going.
That is a shame.
Everyone's in love with him.
TV. He's done TV as well.
He's done TV as well, and he would absolutely just throw himself into that role so hard.
Oh, that's great.
So, like I said before, Matt Berry was nearly my pick, but he was picked by this guy who was here for a lot, pretty much from the beginning. I think he was the first guy I thought of. You need somebody who can play the fraud. You need someone good looking. You need someone who's going to sign up and give it their all. You know, you need that bit at the end, even the sinisterness where he turns and he says, "I'm very good at memory charms." And he even says that whole thing. He's like, "Oh no!" When they saw the dead body and they went mad, you're like, "Oh God, he's actually nuts." I'm going for someone who, at the moment, is in their freak stage of their career. Every role they're doing, freak. Dan Stevens.
Okay.
He would now. If you saw him in Godzilla Kong, where he's like a nutty Cockney. If you've seen The Guest, personally, if you saw Abigail, the vampire film, where he's like, that bit in it where the clip's doing the rounds, where he's like, he's talking about something, and then he goes, "Sammy, those are fucking onions." Like, I could just see him doing that and doing like, you know, having just a blast with the costumes when the pixies are attacking him, even all the small things, you know, like being like, "Oh God, we've been here so long signing autographs. What fun we've had." I think he would have the time of his life, and we'd have the time of our lives watching him ham it up.
The beating off men quote is like one of the most famous. Like, it's he could do it. You told me this weeks ago. I was like, "Oh fuck's sake, I thought I had a good one," and then you told me Dan Stevens. I can't unsee it. He's got the blue eye, but you know he's always linked to Bond. It still fits with the Bond thing. Ewan McGregor, it's fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like he could do. It's one of the best roles in the whole series. He's the greatest character that's ever lived.
It is absolutely one of the best roles, and you know, I think whoever gets it is literally. I reckon whoever gets cast is like, this is going to be fun. Yeah. I'm gonna have a good couple of months doing this one.
Good money. Good season, cameo down the line, great stuff. But moving on from Gilderoy, let's go Prisoner of Azkaban. Remus Lupin, which obviously doubles into, you know, Part 2's heroes, etc. So Sirius will be in there. But Lupin is one of the trickiest ones. I'm going to be really honest, guys. So I know people at home that maybe not know. I know you guys know I'm doing this. I'm going like age appropriate. They're telling us this is going to be the most authentic adaptation ever. Then the Marauders, Lily James. Lily James died at the age of 21. Snape's 21 at this point too. Prophecy, Snape's actually at fault. We'll get into that shortly. But Philosopher's Stone, Lupin, Sirius, Snape, Pettigrew, they're 32. They're fucking kids. Now, one of the best things the film ever did, age them up to get Alan Rickman. And then we got some of the greatest thespians on screen, which I actually think, not that we'd have known it was going to be TV, it benefits the show so much that they're going to age them down, that you're not going to be looking for people in their 40s, because then you could have just got the OGs back. So I've picked a character. I actually changed my pick originally to who's now going to be my Pettigrew when we get to it. But unfortunately, I thought I did a really good casting call. And then he got interviewed on a red carpet recently. And it turns out apparently 3/4 of the internet have already begged this person to play this character, actually for multiple years in a flashback series. So let's get it out of the way. He's a bit aged up in real life, but he looks about 10 years younger than what he is. And he's playing a fucking werewolf at the same time. It's Andrew Garfield. Yes.
My pick is Andrew Garfield.
Thank you. I thought it was such smart. I thought it was such a smart pick.
He looks younger than he is, though, to be fair.
He looks so much younger than what he is.
Early 30s.
He could do the weirdo werewolf struggling in the corner, wounded, and yeah, I thought it was a really great pick, and then it's basically the most uncommon pick ever. So I'm just going to swiftly move on.
It was the easiest pick, like.
Was it?
Not the easiest pick. It wasn't the easiest pick, but I feel like as soon as I went, oh yeah, he'd be good for it. I looked online. I was like, oh, everyone wants him as it. Okay, it's been talked about for years. Okay, yeah.
So I've not gone Andrew Garfield. I've gone, thinking about the age, the early 30s. But also, who is Lupin? Lupin's a werewolf. He's basically a homeless guy. At certain points you see him, he looks like he's had the shit kicked out of him. And I'm really thinking about that scene on the bridge. That scene is my favourite scene in the Harry Potter franchise. Is
John
Lupin,
Williams score.
That beautiful score, that beautiful... And if you could do it again, not exactly the same, but you get an actor with some weight to him to talk about, Lily was uncommonly kind, your dad had a flair for trouble. And I'm thinking about that scene in the Shrieking Shack. Again, you got to get actors who can proper go for it. And his career's on the up and up. Paul Mescal. If you've seen After Sun, those scenes with the daughter in After Sun where he's trying to hide the depression, he's trying to hide the hell he's in. That's what I want for Lupin. Someone who's trying his best to hide the beast within, trying to be brave for the kids, but actually when he lets it shed, he's actually a broken man who basically, all it boils down to is he misses his friends. That's what it boils down to. He misses the people that made him feel like he was worth something. And I feel like Paul Mescal could nail that.
Without too much of an internet deep cut, you could definitely see him running away from Tonks as he apparently runs away from people in his apartments. Very deep cut social media post there.
Put the scene in the park. Put the scene in the park.
Yeah, sorry, it's a very good pick, but I just that walked into that one. I'm excited for everyone's Tonks picks because I will say this: one of the creepiest things about the films is the Lupin Tonks relationship because Natalia Tenlet's younger than what she is, and David Thewlis is obviously aged up, so it's like almost 20-year age gap. Whereas actually the reality it's like 10ish, which isn't too bad. Like, with how young Tonks is. It's not too bad. That's a conversation for the next episode. But moving on to Eye Moody, who we know is going to stick around. You can't follow Brendan Gleeson, so I'm just getting that out of the way. I struggled with this because I think Brendan Gleeson in this is one of the best. I mean, there's many great castings in those films, but Brendan Gleeson as Mad-Eye is very high up. So I've gone for someone who's got a bit of a presence, but is comfortable enough to be disfigured, to go in the makeup chair, to probably be really happy and to sort of be not like happy to be on the show, but it's going to have a bit of a presence. And he did this sort of House of the Dragon. So I'm putting in Paddy Considine. I don't know if it would work, but he's very tall, he's very lanky, and obviously with Mad-Eye, he's way more disfigured than he ever looked. It's basically Brendan Gleeson with a crazy eye and a wig and a bit of bit of prosthetics on. This guy is like unrecognizable, like he is destroyed across his body. Maybe I'm thinking about House of the Dragon, The Walk too much towards the end of his run, but I just think get Considine in. He's done HBO, he's done the budget stuff, but I think give him a wand, I think it'd be very entertaining. And if it is this deluded guy who was the best aura that ever lived, have you seen Dead Man's Shoes? There we go. You want him to go kill some people?
Yeah.
There you go.
It's just that bit. You're fucking here, mate.
So my pick for Mad-Eye, I think Mad-Eye needs to be a physical actor, but also I think Mad-Eye needs to be a method actor specifically. It's a role that will take... No, not Jared Leto. No, Christ. It's a role that, he needs to be hunched, he needs to be physically scarred, but he also needs to be mad, as in like crazy in some scenes. Being able to play the Barty Crouch Jr. playing Mad-Eye role, but also playing the Mad-Eye role. So I've gone with Christian Bale, who would transform himself into that performance and really take it over.
Could you imagine him teaching? It'd be like The Prestige. You want to see a magic trick?
I don't want to be back for season 5.
But he could be so scary as well. He could play that kind of mentor, but also that fierceness that comes with it.
That is a good shout. My one I've gone for is a staple of television, but he's got a fan base because he's been part of a long-running franchise of sci-fi. I'm thinking of someone who can do sinister, but can also do funny. And someone who isn't averse to a bit of franchise work, Peter Capaldi. Get a Doctor Who in there. With the Scottish accent, you know how mad he could be? A bit of the thick of it as well. I mean, I don't expect him to start swearing, but...
could you imagine him just going off at Harry, like, just, at a whim?
Looking at Mundungus Fletcher going, I kiss my sweaty balls. I just can see him with the crazy hair, with the crazy costumes, just like proper
The
screaming.
Thinker.
I was thinking the Thinker, the Doctor, these sort of role. You know, there's that show on Amazon where he's like a serial killer in prison. I'm just thinking all these things, and that scene, that great scene where he's torturing the spider creature, and he's doing the unforgivable curses. Peter Capaldi really put some juice on that.
Excellent, love Capaldi. Let's move on to everyone. Sorry, I would love to chat about all these. The Dark Arts teacher is so much fun. And we have one of the I don't want to say fan favorites, like the most detested character. I won't call them the typical Facebook mums, but these are the sorts of people that like actually despise everything about the character and put that into their personal life. But let's cast Umbridge, which is very exciting. I think I know Tayte, and I've made sure I've not picked the same. I've gone for someone with a bit of gravitas. Imelda Staunton loves the role. She's returning to do it for the theme park next year, like recordings and stuff, and a lot of pink toad-like appearance, which I know has always been tricky to do. But I've gone for like a prestigious actress who's done a bit of TV, who I think could probably really enjoy. Again, it's like a guest appearance thing, right? It's you're going to be in one season, and then you're going to crop up in the 7th one for maybe an episode or two. I think for an act, you know how we spoke about, I think whoever's going to play Gilderoy is going to have a load of fun. I feel like Umbridge is like the female equivalent. So I've gone for Kate Winslet because I just think there's something there. Okay, yes, she's maybe not got the natural, like, not comedic side because she's not funny, but I think Kate Winslet would love the role and could probably do something we've not really seen.
She is funny in real life. She is quite
exactly.
So funny.
And she's so regal on the screen. And I think this would be where she can let loose a bit of that persona. But yes, I put Winslet.
Like that,
it was very close to someone else, but yeah, I've gone for Winslet.
As soon as I thought of this role, I thought, okay, I need to pick the nicest person possible who could play that kind of horrible, tweaky edge to herself. And like, I thought of one person in particular from their roles in Fleabag, from their roles in Peep Show, and their roles in The Favourite. I'm going with Olivia Colman, who is one of the nicest people you could possibly imagine. But you could just imagine her smiling and just staring at you and just speaking awful, horrible words at you, but like still having a massive smile on her face. And that's the kind of character she is. And for a one kind of series, one-off character to come in and have that gravity, that would be her.
Coleman may crop up later on in castings for Paul. Mine, Umbridge made a bit like Mr. Lupin. Umbridge made my Mount Rushmore. I think Umbridge is one of the great villains of literature and film, and will become one of the great villains of TV. And like you say, it's a one season with a couple of guest spot role. You want someone who can terrify the hell out of you. You need somebody who is like, this woman is going to kill these children, and she won't even break a sweat. And I've gone for someone who has actually, has done big American stuff and has done American telly as well in a villainous role. She has been in the Fantastic Beasts, but I'm ignoring Fantastic Beasts. I'm going Samantha Morton, one of our great actresses, amazing actress, great in stuff, great in Minority Report. People love her, but I'm thinking when she was in Walking Dead as the leader of the Whisperers, where they wear the zombie flesh as masks and she barely speaks. She could bring such an intensity that I would just love watching her be absolutely terrifying. And it gives her a chance to maybe do some lighter stuff when she's implementing all the crazy laws. There's a bit of levity to it as well. And yeah, I think she'd ace that role.
Excellent. Yeah. I think she'd be great. Is she in June Prophecy? I know that's starting.
Yes, she is. Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, I'm going to watch the first episode soon. Okay, right. Sixth Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Let's just say it, guys. Trickiest role of, to me, all three to do. We're casting Snape. This makes it harder going age appropriate. I've already given my Adam Driver speech. There's no Americans. I won't make an exception for you. Adam Driver would be visually perfect if they cast him. I won't complain, but for the sake of the video, I shan't. I have gone for someone I'm not sure about, and I feel really horrible picking on him because it looks like I'm being rude. In the book, Snape's like disgusting. He's pure evil. He's not redeemable. In the films, he's got redemption, and it works. But in the books, like when he finds out that Neville like turned him the boggart into his nan's clothes. Snape like almost kills Trevor his frog. He's actually like the most like disgusting, self-centered, loathsome character. And the film series very carefully avoided those dark, calling Lily a mudblood in his worst memory. Basically, the wizarding incel. And I don't know how you do this on TV. I don't know who you cast. And whoever they do cast, hopefully it's a thespian that none of us have ever heard or seen, or just someone to... It's the trickiest role for anyone to step into. So I put someone in who I know is a shit pick, and he's a great actor, and I sound horrible picking on his ears. I've put Josh O'Connor in. He has a distinct face, and that's really horrible because he can act. But Snape is not a good-looking dude, and I'm not saying Josh O'Connor is not good-looking either. He just has a distinct facial features that if he grew his hair out and dyed it black and put him in the cape and the robes, would it work? I don't know. I don't know who it fucking does work to. So that's me out the zone. This was the one. It's like everyone's most... It's Adam Driver. It has to be Adam Driver, but I'm not allowing it to be Adam Driver.
I genuinely think that if there was ever a reason not to do the Harry Potter HBO series, it would be because you've already nailed Snape and it's impossible to actually recast him. I think if there was ever anything thrown out there for that would be that. I've gone with Tom Sturridge, who is Sandman, who has the looks, has the age appropriateness as well, is in that early 30s bracket, and I think he's a good young upcoming actor. I feel like he could nail the role, but once again, I don't think anyone should be cast here because I think it's like the one defining thing that I think what you put, George, there by saying get a thespian who we've never heard of is probably the best thing you could do, because you pick anyone who's got a name, it could ruin their career, or I don't think they'll ever be able to match the performance in any way, shape, or form. So,
yeah, I feel like Snape for the Harry Potter franchise is the Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. You nailed it. You got it so right. You've kind of screwed any other version. Everyone go, yeah, he's good. He's not Hugh Jackman, though, is he? And I feel like whoever gets this role is going to be like, yeah, you're good. You know Alan Rickman, though, are you? I struggled so hard that I just went for a really boring, obvious pick, Matt Smith. I couldn't think of anyone I thought would be even partway decent. Matt Smith's a good actor. I like Matt Smith a lot, but it was like, screw it, pick someone. Because I just feel like Rickman nailed it. He did too good. You did too good a job, Alan, and we miss you. But you did too good a job.
It's the fact they were so desperate for him, they were happy to then age up a big chunk of the cast that would be foreseeable for the franchise, which shows. And the fact Rickman said no multiple times, and they
Rickman looks exactly how I pictured him when I read the book. Like when I read the books as a kid, and then I saw the movie, I was like, that's exactly how I pictured him.
It's the role that no one's going to be able to. Dumbledore's like easy. We'll get to him later, but like, yeah, young Dumbledore, Jude Law, yeah, great. Oh, look, we already cast Rich House, yeah, great. Snape, no, Rickman or bust. It's tricky, and I wish whoever they cast the absolute best. I'm sure there'll be some actors, and I hope when they cast them, they blow out the water, and I'm sure they know internally that's the one that most people are going to react to. But moving on from Snape to a bit more lighthearted, a bit of maybe a bit of a fun one. Maybe it was fun because Jim Broadbent was cast as Horace Slughorn, but he replaces Snape as the potions teacher. And actually, one of the most important roles in the whole series, coming in the 6th book, playing a role in the 7th, but obviously imperative to the Horcruxes. I've put a British actor in, and I'm going once again for... I know he's not Defense Against the Dark Arts, but it's the logic, right? He's your guest star for that season in the 6th one. I want a bit of a presence. I want a bit of age. I want someone that's got this repertoire as this really, like, not like nice guy, but he can play the political game. The people that he puts under his wing do very well within their lives. At the same time, he's got a life of regret due to something he did. And I really struggled with this to begin with. And then I came across somebody, and this is terrible because he played a role where he had a stutter. I've gone for Colin Firth.
That's a good show.
I'm thinking the age. I know it sounds terrible I'm saying because he had a stutter in King's Speech, but he's a phenomenal actor. And I just think there'd be something there within him that he's got this... go to the end of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy when he takes the sniper bullet. He's just sort of sat outside, just neutral, nothing there, nothing left. That's kind of Slughorn to a point when he's not playing the political game. And Yeah, and if you wanted the young flashbacks of when he's a bit younger, he's a bit more with it, he's funny, he's chatting, he's telling people shit. Colin Firth's going to do that too, so I put Firth in mine. It's a tricky role. I fucking love Jim Broadbent, and we've got a Borrows reunion with him and Tom Felton.
I actually like your pick more than I like my pick. I went with Mark Addy. Mark Addy, who, you know, I feel like he would take on the more kind of, you know, the parties kind of side of things. He would really bring people under his wing. The one thing that I struggled with trying to find in an actor was that kind of that sense of regret towards kind of the end of, you know, the 6th book and the 6th kind of film, or the 6th series as it would be, and really having that kind of painful look on his face, kind of, you know, when he kind of reveals what actually happened. But I feel like Mark Addy would play everything else to that extent quite well. People recognize him. It's not as big of an A-lister name for the kind of the yearly cameo, but at the same time, you know, he does good in every role he's in. So
that's a good shout. Game of Thrones again. For me, again, for some of them, I'm casting specifically for one scene, and the whole of that season is going to be building up to what is Slughorn's memory. Dumbledore wants that memory. What is the memory? It's got to build up to that scene where he pulls it out of his head. So for me, I've gone for someone who can play the eccentricity, who can play the sinister, and who can play deep-seated regret. Alfred Molina, one of my favorite actors. If you've seen Promising Young Woman, he's got one scene in Promising Young Woman. He plays the lawyer, the only person who apologizes for what he did in that story. And he says, I had a breakdown, and it's all on his face. And he's like, they say I had a breakdown. I say I had an epiphany. And that, as he's pulling the memory out. But all the stuff with the parties, he's played kind of, you know, the kind of Doc Ock kind of, hey, let's have fun, you know. I'm kind of a charming, avuncular guy, but he can also do the, I taught Voldemort how to become immortal. And I think Alfred Molina would do so well in that role.
I like that pick as well.
I love it. It's the regret. That you're right. The whole season, that whole sequence comes down to what was in.
Some of those stories build up to one pivotal scene, and yeah. I feel like all of Azkaban builds to the Shrieking Shack. You're barreling towards that confrontation, and I feel like Half-Blood Prince is barreling towards a little bit the Watchtower confrontation where Dumbledore croaks it. But really, you're barreling towards the whole mystery of that film is what did Slughorn say to Tom Riddle? And I think you need an actor who can really sort of, when he sheds all of the bravado, can kind of be a man who's actually like, I've spent the last 20 years running. And I think, yeah, I just feel like Alfred Molina would nail that sort of, I'm thinking of the Listen to Me Now scene in Spider-Man 2, kind of that kind of thing where he's like, I think he'd do really well.
Excellent. Oh, I love that. We've got another tough one. Hagrid, replacing the late great Robbie Coltrane, who I believe when J.K. Rowling did interviews said that from day one of her writing the books, the image of Hagrid carrying Carrie as a baby, actually as well, the ending, she had that in mind. And it was always Robbie Coltrane she spoke about. This is one of the tougher ones to do, but I found one, and I think this is like the internet's favourite as well, but I think there's a reason why. Tate, you just spoke about him. I've put Mark Addy in mine. Okay. I'll be blunt. I don't know how you do Hagrid without Robbie Coltrane. You've got to think he's going to deliver one of the most important speeches in the whole thing with Harry in the first one. And if you look at his role in other episodes, other seasons, he doesn't really have a lot to do. Okay, second one, he's sent to Azkaban unlawfully. Third one, he's a teacher, if I'm honest, a terrible teacher, which they kind of go into. Fourth one, again, not much. Fifth one, you'll get a great episode, hopefully a whole episode dedicated to Hagrid's tale, but his presence diminishes, and it's not his own, it's the way the story moves on. And he's sort of kept around because they want to keep Hagrid around. Again, I guess getting back to the last one. I just put Mark Addy, it's that familiarity, it's that comfortable blanket. Okay, we've seen him in Game of Thrones. You want to see him in a big beard and the hair? We've sort of done that, but we're just going to scale him a bit. Again, I don't know. One of my biggest worries to the show is this character ends up like as a weird, horrible half CGI monster. I hope they don't do that. But I'm just, again, it's the almost Snape level. Like, yeah, replacing this isn't going to be as hard as Snape, but I guess it's because he's a he's big. He has a big beard. He's got big hair. It's easier to fit within the Hagrid persona, whereas Snape has to wear it as a sleeve.
I think as well, if it's Hagrid, you know, if people like the character, they can go back and watch the full Monty, and then suddenly, you know. But, my pick for Hagrid was one of the first ones I did, Nick Frost. I think Nick Frost has that comedy level, has that warmth. Make him bigger, do the movie magic, and he is your guy.
Yeah, that is a good one. He was nearly my choice. My choice, I've gone for Tom Davis. People might know him best. King Gary, the sitcom King Gary. You ever see that? Or maybe Paddington 2. He's the big fella.
Yeah.
Look him up. He's massive.
Yeah, I know you mean. Oh, yeah, good shout. Yeah.
Murder and Successful. I'm thinking those early seasons.
Wonka.
You know, those, I shouldn't have told you that. I shouldn't have told you. I could just imagine him doing that kind of thing of like, I shouldn't have told you, get out of my house, all that sort of thing. I think he's got something in him where he can do the more dramatic stuff that comes later on. But those early ones, you have to love Hagrid. And I think Tom Davis is... I'm a big fan of King Gary. I find King Gary very funny. If you've not seen it, it's a very funny show. And yeah, I think... Also, it helps that he's quite a big fella anyway. So that also helps.
It's very funny. I saw an interview of him. They talking about how on Wonka he just kept going to Timothy Chalamet's tent to get his breakfast. Timothy Chalamet didn't mind. He's like, you're a small boy. You don't need all this food. He's like, you're smoothies. So yeah, I can actually see that. That's really good. Moving from Hagrid, this is a weird one to put Aragog. I know it's a one season. It's a voice role. Like I can't remember if he's alive in the sixth one. If he crops up between 2 and 6 in the books at all, but it's a voice acting role. It's one maybe one of a bit of fun with. Maybe hypocritical. I didn't put the sorting hat in, but I don't particularly care. But Aragog, one for a prestigious voice actor, British, played a villain before, one of the best animated villains before. Let's get him in. Jeremy Irons, done.
Yeah, shout.
Just voicing Scar as the spider. Thank you.
Yeah,
I can see it.
I've gone similar route. British voice actor. And this is one where I know he's getting on, but he has just done or redone a role in Doctor Who recently. So Gabriel Cook, who is a pure voice actor, doesn't do anything other than voice acting. He played Sutek, or the voice of Sutek in the latest series, and he also did the voice of the Beast in the Satan Pit episodes. So yeah, he has the voice.
I feel like Brian Cox would be a good shout. He's not my shout, but I feel like if it's the showrunner of Succession, also because I quite like the idea of Aragog telling them to fuck off. You are not serious wizards.
You are not serious wizards.
But that's not my pick. My pick is it's the voice. It's the menace. And this is an actor who's got a great voice, and he plays menace very well. Ian McShane. Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda, Blackbeard, Al Swearingen. He's got that great voice. Couple of days in a recording booth, nice big sack of money. Ian McShane gets to buy an extension to his house. Everybody's happy.
It'd be great. I'm glad I know you brought him up before we hit record, and I now know exactly why. I
love Ian McShane. Do you know what?
I love
Him
Ian
and Kung
McShane as
Fu
well.
Panda as a tangent when he goes, "But he's a panda. You're a panda." It's still one of the funniest line readings.
I think he's underrated as an actor. I think so many people just have him locked in now as well for John McNeese and so much more. And he also went on the one show called Ballerina Terrible, which I thought was hilarious. But we're moving on to one of the last. We've got 4 more. We've got 2 heavyweights and 2 glorified cameos. Professor McGonagall. This is going to be one of the trickiest roles. This is one of the first ones I did actually, so I'm just going to get her on the board. You need to have the right level of maternal instincts. You've got to have that loving personality. At the same time, you need to have, listen, don't piss me off. I love you, but don't piss me off because I will throw the book at you. It's the mother, Olivia Colman. Tate, I know you've got her for one of your roles.
Olivia Colman too.
Colman's up. I just think it has to be her. I think she'd sign on for the 7th. Did you see the video of her getting her Blue Peter badge the other day? It was lovely.
So cute. It was so. Antonio Banderas didn't look like he understood
what
was going on.
He didn't have a clue. And I think Olivia Colman. You got to think about like Peep Show was on. She broke through really with Peep Show, and that started after Harry Potter, I think, or similar times. And no one can really replace Maggie Smith at gravitas, but you need to then in turn have someone who is like, oh god, not like a Brexiteer, but you need like put them on the England flag. Like everyone's going to worship her. No one can say a bad word about her. And I've put Olivia Colman as mine. I think she'd love it. I think she'd love it as well.
Those maternal scenes that I'm thinking of. It's that don't leave that boy with those horrible people. You know, she's as upset as Hagrid is to say goodbye to Harry. All those scenes when, you know, even I can just picture her doing the sheer dumb luck scene in the first one. I can see her, you know, standing between Umbridge and Trewlawney saying, well, it's the duty of the headmaster to expel people from the grounds. She's got that balance, and I love Olivia Colman. If you've never seen Tyrannosaur, what a performance. She's one of our best. Yeah, she's my pick from day one.
I liked the pick, and I was toying between, you know, Dolores and whether she would go as McGonagall. But in the end, the thing that swayed me was I wanted McGonagall to be Scottish. Okay. I really wanted McGonagall to be Scottish. So I ended up going with someone who's been in a lot of villain roles, but you can see the maternal side coming through in all of those villain roles. So it's another Doctor Who pick. I'm picking loads of Doctor Who and Game of Thrones picks. She wasn't in Game of Thrones. She was in Doctor Who. She was also in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I'm picking Michelle Gomez. And I think I genuinely see her in this role as not only the right age, but having that
face.
She has the face. She does have maternal instincts coming through in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. She has that kind of wickedness coming through in Doctor Who, and just great acting chops across the board. I also see her playing a witch. I see her playing that role, and she would age with the films. She's not such a big name that it's like, oh, we've got this massive, you know, if they do end up going with their pick for Dumbledore, I feel like she would actually bounce off quite well.
Yeah. They've got to cast someone that's got the chemistry. I mean, we were watching Philosopher's Stone a few weeks ago because we were about to start rewatching as a family, and it sort of hit me for the first time. The opening scene is McGonagall, Hagrid, Dumbledore, and all three of those have passed away. Obviously, Rich Harris a lot before the other two, but it was a very weird experience when that clicked in my head, and maybe some. And I just thought McGonagall's just there, present for all of it. She's the future headmistress. She's involved with every character, every major storyline, and she raises those kids as her own. She's got the joyous side for all the Quidditch stuff where she loves the house and she loves the students, and that's a very good pick. She's got that like not like Scottish like national, but the fear side too. And then with the Olivia Colman, that's the struggle. Like we know Olivia Colman can be nasty, we've seen it in the favourite, but Michelle Gomez just has that like she could probably just like morph her face somewhat with an expression, and that's
she would just snap in a sentence like. You know, that line of why is it always you three kind of, you know, you could see her delivering it.
Definitely. I mean, that's a big one out of the way. The fact two of us are the same one's interesting. Let's go for some small ones. We've got three more folks. And you might be wondering, who the hell is Nigellus Black? Yes, he was in the Hogwarts Legacy game, voiced by Simon Pegg, actually. But he's basically like redeemed as Hogwarts' worst headmaster in the early 1900s. But he has a portrait. And he basically crops up a lot in the books. And kind of what we spoke about the ghosts earlier. I'm not casting loads of portraits, don't get me started. But the headmaster ones appear in different places around. And it's almost like Dumbledore used them to spy. I think one of them's in the Ministry, one of them's at the Black household, or something like that. We saw it with his sister, Dumbledore's sister in the last one. So Nigellus Black, it's a glorified cameo, British actor who might crop up a couple of times. He's got a bit of a presence. He can do the bumbling idiot. Tom Hollander, please and thank you. Very quick one.
I like that pick.
I like that. Tom Hollander crops up later on for me. But I do like
sadly, he doesn't crop up on my list, sadly. I went similar. It isn't a massive role, but I thought, which actor would I like to see in this role who could... I looked up the character. I didn't even know who the character was. I did a bit of research. I went with Ian Griffith. So, yeah.
Mr. Fantastic.
Mr. Fantastic.
No, that's a good... again, I've gone for someone who could crop up a couple of times, has got a bit of interest about him. Rufus Sewell. Venerable character actor. Knight's Tale... Legend of Zorro. He's always cropping up in stuff, and I love Rufus Sewell, and I'd like to see him, have a couple of guest spots, chewing the fat.
And a second ex-headmaster. This one's maybe got a bit more than Nigellus Black. Professor Dippet, for those unaware, he is the headmaster during the original Chamber of Secrets. He appears in some important flashbacks within that, mainly expelling Hagrid. By the way, Robbie Coltrane playing a 13-year-old Hagrid is still hilarious. Sorry, it didn't click to me as a kid how outrageous that is. But expelling Hagrid when it's literally growing out, Robbie Coltrane's great. But Professor Dippet, he's the headmaster. Dumbledore's the Transfiguration teacher. He's basically all under Voldemort's all over him. He's lured him. Everyone loves Voldemort except Dumbledore. But Dippet's that political type leader. And yeah, who do you want to bring in one role that can play the Game of Thrones? So we bring none other than Littlefinger back to the fore. I'm putting Aidan Gillen in. It's a one scene, glorified one scene and done. I just would love to see Aidan Gillen interacting with something on HBO again. Again, glorified cameo, but a key scene nonetheless.
I looked up the character once again. I was like, "Who's Dippet?" I swear he is in the films, or at least in a scene in the films.
They sort of hide him in the. I get why they hide him in the second one.
But I was like, okay, so his character is meant to be quite political, and I noticed that he was meant to be quite political and quite straight faced and everything like that. So I went with Matthew Rhys, who. Throw him into anything, he's great, but has played a lot of political roles over his years. So,
yeah, no, I was thinking as well, this is something you could expand in episodes. It doesn't have to be just one scene. You could have a couple of scenes, really explore that backstory of what happened when the chamber opened and what that did to the school and things. And I was thinking, who's good at playing kind of untrustworthy, kind of slimy, smarmy, who would maybe sign up to have a bit of a laugh and a giggle and wear some silly costumes for maybe a week? Hugh Grant. He's having a bit of a weird one with his career. He's playing Oompa Loompas. He's playing Phoenix Buchanan. He's Heretic. One episode, he shows up. Oh, well, the chamber's going to be big snow. Well, doing a bit of we're gonna get rid of Rubius. So sad. I think he could really have a bit of fun if you give him a bit more to do and really explore the history a bit more, which is something I would really love in the show. If they could really explore the history of the school, and especially in that second season, because it's all about the school. But yeah, Hugh Grant going, oh, do we have to get rid of, how has a student died? Unfortunate. I'm thinking of Dungeons and Dragons when he goes, I can't bear to watch you die, so I'm going to get up and leave.
Did you know who he almost was in Harry Potter back in the day?
He was nearly Lockhart, and that is sublime casting, in my opinion.
That would have been fantastic.
I guess in 2002, no one would have ever thought it, right? Because it's the rom-com, it's Hugh Grant, it's this. And then now Hugh Grant's like, he's very good at comedy now. Now, you look, okay, you're not going to top Kenneth Branagh, but looking back, it's like, oh, he would have been fucking good.
He would have been good.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. I don't think I've got one, but we talked about 2 ex-headmasters. We're almost at the 2 hour mark. We're going to cap this at 2 hours, so I don't think. Yeah, it's going right. This is the longest of the 3. No one else. 28 castings in this one, I think, compared to the others of about 23 or 24. So won't be as long for the others. But we have one of the biggest, the MVPs. We're closing each episode with some really important ones. You may have noticed a thumbnail. We have Mark Rylance, and guess what? I fooled you. He was my Professor Binns, not my Dumbledore. Variety this week have obviously released the article that they are circling around him. They would very much like for him to get involved. I just want to use this really brief moment to talk about him before I give my pick. If this is actually who they're looking for, who they're going to cast, I am all in on Rylance as Dumbledore. Personally, I put him in a guest role because I thought of that. I just didn't think he'd want to do 7 seasons, like 6 seasons and a little bit locked in. And you really look at Dumbledore and actually, he's almost got no presence in the 5th one. He's obviously in the 6th one a lot more. He's not even in the 4th one all too much. Whether they want to expand things or not, it's a role that if you're going to cast somebody, this makes me sound terrible, and I'm fine to put this opinion on the internet. Richard Harris obviously knew he was not going to do the run. He was ill at the time. I believe his granddaughter begged him based off the stories. I know David Heyman knew him outside of film and was desperate for him to get involved too. But they kind of knew Richard Harris. They'd never be able to do it. And I absolutely love Michael Gambon. I think he's really unfairly criticised online. obviously everyone goes to Dumbledore said calmly, "Did you put your name?" On it's that's going to be wild when it happens. But I have tried to take an approach like, okay, I would like an actor in their early to mid 60s. I want a bit of gravitas. I want a thespian. I want someone that's committed that would do this. I want someone that could wear the wig or grow their hair, that could have the mustache, could have the beard, could have the costumes. They've got to have the charming grandparent side of things, which is where mine, I'm not too sure. They've got to be able to do the physical things. You get into 5 and 6, lads, and I've always said this, not in a horrible way. Richard Harris could never have done Order of the Phoenix duel against Dumbledore. He could never have done the Half-Blood Prince.
Darth Vader. Just
And obviously, again, no one knew, those books were being written, so everyone knows exactly what this role is going to have. So I am pitching like I've got a chance. Who's an actor who has had an abnormally large moustache in recent years, who has committed to a franchise, which for some reason is now getting a 4th film, I believe, who has actually already got experience within Harry Potter playing the greatest character of all time, the OG Gilderoy Lockhart. I want Kenneth Branagh, Sir Kenneth Branagh. Sir Kenneth Branagh Dumbledore. Hear me out. He would commit to the 7 seasons. He'd probably direct a couple of episodes as well. He'd probably help get some other names on the board. He would be so well involved. And what I spoke about earlier with Gilderoy, he was gutted he couldn't do the cameo. He clearly enjoyed his time working on this. You've seen him in interviews. You've seen him on red carpets. He's a legend of British cinema. So for me, I'm all in on Kenneth Branagh coming back. And I know that some people are, but he's Gilderoy. I think visually and distinctly, you could put him as Dumbledore and it wouldn't be so obvious. He'd have a different accent. It's a completely different role. It's 20 years ago. He's obviously older in real life, but I'm just looking at that Poirot mustache. Like, picture it grey and then get the beard in, the hair, and you're there. I think he'd be up for it. I think he'd be game, and I'm all in on Sir Kenneth Branagh as Dumbledore. There's my speech. There's my moment.
Purely hypotheticals here. I feel like out of the actors available, he's probably one of the most kind of physical that could take on the role.
It's. Am I being like ageist by saying? And I'll say this about Mark Rylance. Sorry, I thought he was a lot older than 65. I'm sorry. I saw it yesterday and I was like, he ain't gonna do 10 years. I was like, that's bad. And I was like, oh no, he's a lot younger than I thought. And I think kind of that's for me. That was my big one. Was I know Charles Dance has been linked before on the internet. I'm like, I swear he's like almost 90 or almost 80. Charles President. I've tried to find a role for Charles Dance, couldn't. But
I was going to say there were so many roles when I was looking up that I almost gave it to. We've mentioned a few today. Ian McShane was on my list at one point to take up the role.
For me, it's a 10-year gig. That's the thing I'll say. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. Yeah. No one knows what can happen in life. Anything could happen the day after tomorrow. But I just think, not that I've got an issue with Richard Harris, not that I've got an issue with Michael Gambon, but I would love to see we're doing it across. Bring in the darker shit from the 7th book, the Too Scared to Say He's Gay. Bring in little tidbits of that. Sprinkle it across the first few books. Hey, he wasn't this perfect guy. He was a manipulative bastard. And you know what? And I'll say this. Obviously, Harris Jr. was an obvious choice. He's ruled himself out, so I'm just saying that. Fair enough. And I think Jude Law was very harshly done by. He was a fucking excellent Dumbledore. And if this series is being rebooted in 10 years, I'd have said Jude Law, but it's not. It's being done, so it can't.
I'll list off a few that I thought about, because this is one where it probably had the most changes. So I thought about like Sean Pertwee. I thought about Brian Cox if we didn't have any of the kind of the 10 years and the physical demands and everything like that. But in the end, I kept on going back to this person who, they are an actor. They're more known for kind of not really acting, doing other things such as panel shows and various different things. But more importantly, the link to Harry Potter being there already. He is the voice of the audiobooks. And Stephen Fry has that lovely, warm sensibility to him. He is the most intelligent person in the room. And he plays any character or role as if he was the most intelligent person in the room. I don't know whether he'd be able to do it physically, is my only thing. That is the only thing that's holding him back from being almost the perfect Dumbledore and continuing on the legacy of Harry Potter that he's already set up for himself. But I really do see him as that intelligent, wise, thinking on his feet figure, protective of Harry, and just wanting to do the greater good, even if it means doing horrible things to get it.
I love that. And he's gay. I'm just going to say that as well.
Yeah,
which is
absolutely
something they were too scared to say, even after 3 spin-off films.
I had, for a very long time, Pierce Brosnan as my pick. Right?
You've changed.
For a very long time, I had Pierce Brosnan. Because I can just, if you saw him as Dr. Fate in Black Adam, I know nobody saw that movie, but he's got the gravitas, he's got the paternal instinct, and also, let's face facts, if you're going to splurge a load of cash on an actor, it's going to be Dumbledore, because you're making that investment. But I've pivoted to somebody who I think would commit to TV, because he's done a lot of TV. 2, looks phenomenal with a beard. And like longish hair, someone who I think would be able to do the eccentricity of Dumbledore. You get, the thing, have a licorice snap, be careful, they bite, but can also do the seriousness that you get further on down the line. I've gone for absolute national treasure and TV legend, Hugh Laurie. Bit of the house. Bit
you
of the
went to the other
Blackadder.
side of Brian Laurie.
Exactly. You get a bit of the Blackadder about him in the early stuff, the silliness, the fun that you get, and then the stuff he's doing now. Since House and things. And if anybody saw, there was a mini series he was in where he played a Frenchman, but he had this great big beard. He had a great big bushy beard, and he had this long hair. And I just think Hugh Laurie would be able to. He's got a great voice as well. And I think Hugh Laurie would be a really interesting Dumbledore. He's able to do that regret and that anger that comes out later on. And so, I pivoted away from Pierce Brosnan, and I went for I went for Hugh Laurie.
And his 101 Dalmatians co-star was the original Mr. Weasley, Mark Williams, legend. Love that film. I like all these choices. And we've all gone for actors, and they're like we've just naturally entered that 60s age, haven't we? Which is fun. Like I said, I'm not being like a dickhead, like they could die tomorrow. Like, anyone can, but it is that long-term storytelling. Like, are they gonna? It's a 10-year gig. It's 7 seasons, but let's be honest, it's probably going to be a year and a half. I said there's going to be some seasons Dumbledore's needed more than others, but he is that glue that runs the franchise. He is the most recognizable wizard after Harry. He's the one that everyone speaks of, everyone remembers. It's the reason we're hearing about it first, right? It's the first name out the gate, and you're casting your kids, great, but get the adults in. Who's the biggest name you're going to cast? It's going to be Dumbledore first.
I feel like if you get Dumbledore and you get the right actor, then the other actors will sort of
follow.
A bit like, if Rylance has said yes, then this has got to be something. And I feel like even with our picks as well, you would be like, well, if this person said yes, then there's got to be something about it that's appealing.
I like them all, and it's kind of this. We're having a bit of fun. Like, we took it seriously, but not too seriously. We're deranged, but not too stupid. It took us 2 minutes to have a laugh. But this is kind of where the show is. Like, I won't get into the politics because I want to cap it at 2 hours. But the show has a lot of damn potential, and not just because I'm talking about loads recently. I know I've said it before in other videos. I think Paul, you're on this too. But it's like a sleeping giant, like Hogwarts Legacy that came out last year. I feel that that's now the glue for the franchise that the Warner Brothers is speaking about the game. Yeah, we've got to stick in production. We need to be more like this. We want to develop this. They can just say, obviously, got it wrong with Fantastic Beasts. That's fine. But if this show is as big as the films, and I think it can be, it could even, I don't want to say eclipse them, but it could be as big as those films. I maintain that. You've got to get it right at the cast. And the reason we had Dumbledore last of today's episode is because he's that most important one, especially from the teachers. As you said, if you bring in a good Dumbledore, other actors will follow. It's like setting it in motion. If you cast the wrong Dumbledore, no big actors, they'll be like, they didn't get this one right. We're probably going to steer clear for now. But I think if you nail it first time around, you're in. But does anyone have anything else to say? I know it's been almost 2 hours. It's been a pretty fun discussion. I know we've got 2 more. And
I haven't despised a single pick yet. Which I've outright gone.
Get much worse.
Which is but this is the whole thing. It's a friendly discussion, but what I like is the fact that I've enjoyed every single pick that's come so far. Some of them have really surprised me in a good way. Some of them, I'm glad that we actually some of us are on the same page about things. We haven't had one where all three of us are on the same page yet. I'm hoping that will come a little bit later down the line, but then we can definitively say, yeah, that's our pick right there. But at least we've had some agreements across the board.
And I wonder, we'll do it after 3 episodes, but I guarantee you some of the names we spoke about in all 3 videos are going to get cast in the show. A lot of actors, it's going to be the Harry Potter offer ain't going to come more than once. And if it did come once 20 years ago, now's your chance to do it again. And I do think, again, as you mentioned, Paul, Succession's involved. Writers from Succession. It's a 10-year job. If there's actors that are looking for commitment, they're sorted. If they want to do a little role here and there, they're sorted. So it's a lot of fun. And I'm genuinely, all Harry Potter hype, I'm very intrigued. The most intriguing thing about this reboot for me is not the show, is actually who they're going to put in that show. From, as I mentioned at the start, the composer, the showrunners, to the directors of episodes, to the names involved, and it's going to be an interesting few months. But we will be back with episode 2 in a week's time. As we said, we'll be next doing I think it's families, heroes, and ministry officials. Basically, we're saving the villains to the end because it's the fucking villains, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing that. And I cannot wait. That's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, I am curious to know what people think at home. So please do comment with your thoughts on the Harry Potter HBO series. Any casting you agree with, disagree with. You want to comment some of the people you love to see in some roles, please do that. We'll have a look. We'll reply to those comments. And, oh God, what else is happening? There's a lot of things happening at the moment. It's a very busy time. We've got Mount Rushmore videos on Tuesday. We're heading towards Christmas. There'll be a Christmas series popping back up in December. I feel like there's TV reviews, Skeleton Crew starting soon. There's a lot of things happening. So we'll announce all of those on our socials, Facebook, Letterboxd, Instagram, Twitter, or linktree.com/cinemasavvy will pop you through to there. Paul, what have you been working on recently?
Nothing very exciting. No, just doing some interviews, doing some reviews, which you can catch over at Film Hounds, or if you follow me on my socials, you'll see some stuff on my TikTok and things like that.
Lovely. So everybody, please follow Paul. He will be on for all 3 episodes.
I hope so.
Yeah, I only did the first. You were the first. I was like, oh, blimey. But this is it. This has been a lot of fun. So thank you both for jumping on. I'm glad this idea's worked, at least in my head, and we've made it to the first recording. Now I've got the lovely job of editing this and finding a way to get, 87 images of actors in for today, 29 rolls, 3 each. It's going to be a fun edit. So that's me jumping ahead. Again, everybody at home, thank you so much for watching. There'll be more Harry Potter stuff. I didn't talk about it too much. We've got a Harry Potter logo now. Like we do for Star Wars, like we do for Doctor Who, other things. We haven't gone for Game of Thrones, but we've got one for Dune. That was really random. That caught me off guard on Photoshop today. So yeah, there'll be more Harry Potter things. We're doing these 2, and we're going to follow this HBO series very closely. So there'll be a lot more in the coming years. As I said, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.